5:34. Is there any public comment for the closed session items?
And there's nothing on email.
Okay,
I just checked.
okay. Can we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Rodriguez.
Here.
Trustee Dickinson.
Here.
Trustee Edmondson.
Present.
And trustee Donnelly has not yet arrived, and trustee Jackson Miller will be arriving.
And Philippe will have a form.
All right, the board is gonna convene to close session.
There.
I'm so sorry, George.
You good?
I meant to check in with you. Here we are, calling our open session to order. And we always enjoy beginning our meetings with a pledge of allegiance from one of our students.
Yes, no, I would. So we have Ruby Sear, who's here. She's been at SoCal L for this is 6th year, because since kindergarten. So great representative for our school. She's also super into acting. So she just came from makeup practice. So she just took that off and got here and rushed here. So we appreciate her. And yeah, so here we go, Ruby.
Please stand. Place your hand on your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. SoCal Union Elementary School District Mission Statement. Staff, students, parents, and the community help ensure that each child develops the skills and character necessary for lifelong achievement and responsible citizenship in a diverse world.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ruby, it's my pleasure to present you with a certificate of appreciation, and it has some very nice words about you. Is it okay if I read it out loud for everyone? And do I pronounce your last name Sear? Is that right? Oh. The SoCal Union Elementary School District Board of Trustees Certificate of Recognition for Student Pledge of Allegiance Leader and Mission Statement Leader, Ruby Sear, 5th grade student at SoCal Elementary. Ruby is an energetic student who adds a lot of fun and energy to any room that she is in. Her love of reading and writing is strong, and she especially shines when she's dramatically sharing one of her narrative pieces with a friend or with the whole class. This love for sharing her passion spills over into her hobby of theater acting, where she recently played a Munchkin in The Wizard of Oz, and will also be playing an important role in the upcoming Matilda stage show. We are so lucky to have Ruby at SoCal Elementary. Come on up, you can receive your certificate. We can do a handshake or humble bump or whatever's comfortable for you. What's good? There we go. Thank you very much, Ruby. We have these nice little notepads. If you'd like to take a little goodie home, if you have any siblings at home you want to get something for, that's okay too. Is it okay with you if we ask you some questions? Yeah. Wonderful. Do you have any questions for Ruby? I'll start us off. I heard that you write narratives and readings for your class. Do you like writing stories?
Yes, I love writing stories. I hope to become an author someday. I'm working on a book called Running with Saber.
Running with what?
Saber.
Saber. Interesting. Is that the main character?
Yes.
Give us a little detail maybe of the story. What's one detail?
She is a girl and she can shapeshift into a saber tooth.
Wow. Ooh, I can't wait to see that on the shelves.
I want that power.
Yeah.
Hopefully it turns into a series. Have you thought about writing plays or things like that?
Yes, in
Characters?
Mr. Foster's class, we write weekly plays. On Thursday, we begin to write a play. And on Friday, we finish writing our play and we perform it in front of the rest of the class. You can be in a group of up to 6, and I usually perform with my friends Rayleigh, Amelia, and Colby. And we always put together funny plays that are spin-offs of popular TV shows, like Avery the Brat resembling Annie. And I think once we did The Wizard of Oz. Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
Now, I'm a little selfish, but have you ever thought about like broadcast journalism, be in front of the camera or anything like that, working for a TV station?
Yeah, just yesterday, in fact, or Monday, I was on CNN for catching a fish. I was at the wharf and I caught a perch and somebody interviewed me. And then I was just on CNN and stuff. I was like, let's get out my acting career.
Want the link, you want the link.
Yeah,
Andy Fish, it sounds like.
Yeah.
and she's good at it.
Wow.
Did you see the otter?
We just had a bunch of sails and one of them just would not go into the water. He was just like laying there and then I called him flop because he like got it. He was like, I should probably go back. And no. I was like, "Hi." And just sat there, you know, but I think I did see a sea otter just floating around, but not for very long, just died of it.
Fantastic.
Well, my question for you is there anything that you think we should know? So we're the school board, so we try to make decisions that they're best for all of our students, right? For college needs, for our schools, is there anything that you think we should know from this perspective?
Their school lunches, and there's always not enough for all the kids. The kindergartners get it first, and the lunch ladies always let the younger kids cut us, and the fifth graders, we have to wait until everyone's gone through, and by then it's just this cold cereal bar that we get instead of the hot lunches that everyone else does.
Thank you for, yeah, it's important for us to hear that.
And next year, you're gonna be a sixth grader at Bright, so hopefully they give the sixth graders all the good food.
Yeah, but
And the eighth graders get all the full certificates.
So I will say, my daughter, she's now a seventh grader, but she raves about the one thing, right? Raves about. And you get to choose what you want, salad, yeah, all sorts, yeah. I think you like those. Yeah. There's a lot to look for, yeah, I'm sure you're gonna need there. Foster University, right?
yeah.
Very good. Any other questions? No? Yeah, we'd like to take a picture if that's okay with your family. Is that okay? Photo, if that were you.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't mind, I'm here, your principal, if you're a teacher, anyone else from the SoCal family, want to come on in?
Yeah, just take a picture that way.
Yep, there we go, right here. Here's-
Oh, is that mom right there?
Yeah.
Oh, I have to be in it. All right, well, then I have to take her.
Yeah.
I love sister.
Okay, sorry, smile, girl. All right. Yes, you get one.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, you can.
Then, do you want to be on the?
Yeah, your favorite? Thank you again for joining us, getting us started off right. All right, thank you. Have a lovely evening. Okay. Moving along on the agenda, our next item is item 3B, adoption of the agenda. So I have a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. I second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Right. Yeah. Next up is the report out of closed session, and there were 3 board members in attendance for closed session. On a vote of 3-0, the board voted to deny the appeal. Case number 2823-2404. Our next item is the consent agenda. So I have a motion to approve and adopt the consent agenda.
I move, and I just want to mention that in October, from the 23rd to the 27th, it's College and Career Week.
Awesome. Motion.
Thank you. And we do have a number of important resolutions in our consent agenda. So with that, and when we're ready, we'll do a roll call. Trustee Rodriguez,
Aye.
trustee Dickinson. Aye. Trustee Edmondson. Aye. Trustee Jackson. Aye. Thank you. Right. Next item is a recognition item, recognition of completion of the MTSS.
Well, if students presenting is the best part of the agenda, this is a close second. Is being able to recognize some of our amazing employees who have gone above and beyond on top of their additional schedule. As you heard me mention at the last couple of kickoffs, MTS is not necessarily an initiative. It's a framework in which we can optimize all of our resources to make sure we're serving students at all levels, tiers 1 and 2 and 3. And the only way that really works in a district is it can't just work from the top. It can't just work by sharing resources and sharing slides. It has to be from the ground up. It has to be from the employees in the field. And so with that, we offered the MTSS courses. Each different category has a pathway. There's a coach pathway, there's a teacher pathway, administrator pathway, et cetera, et cetera. And so while there's some basic underpinnings that everybody gets, each group has their own pathway. And so what we're building is a collective of very knowledgeable employees who are willing to spend their own time to get more and more knowledgeable about MTSS, which means we become more and more inclusive as an organization, which is really what it's all about. So just so excited to recognize all of these folks tonight. And if you'd like, I can go ahead and read down the list, or you have the awards there, so I'll let you.
Okay, I have the awards for the folks who I believe are present here today, and if I missed anyone, if anyone snuck in, we will make sure that we have that over there as well. Perfect.
This is over 80 hours of work.
That's what I was
Over
looking
80
at.
hours. And I think that's a very conservative aspect. And the way folks put time into doing things right, it's, I bet every single one put in more than 80 hours.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, if you're comfortable with it, when I call your name up, please come on up. And we can take a picture if we want. I'll let you guys decide. We're so appreciative and grateful for you and excited to celebrate this. So, we have a certificate of recognition for Ann Wilson.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Charlotte Link. Olivia Taylor. Olivia, we are gonna hold on to that one. Allison Watkins. Sasha Talavera. Thank you. Eric Leader. And he's stepped in. I could have given it to him with the student. Perfect. Sandy Figueroa. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Sure. Here, it's not turning.
Was it?
Probably send it more than 80 hours.
And Jen Del Carlo. Did I miss anyone who's here? Okay, we have a total of 33, I think I saw in the memo, so a number of folks will make sure everyone gets their certificates. And I don't know, Ward, if you have any questions or comments. I know we had the opportunity to look at the pathway a little bit and get started on it, and I was very impressed by the program and also realized it, it took a considerable amount of time and effort, and so I'm just really very, very thrilled and impressed with the amount of response that we had.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you guys that the MTMS program is really part of our whole school system. So the fact that you guys took your own time and did the trainings just so commendable. So thank you so much for really like carrying the message to our school sites. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I think
So people are trying to be okay with it.
We had 33 this time.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait till next year.
That's right. That's right.
We went out and go.
We're gonna expand.
Hey,
Jen, you
Yeah,
got.
Okay, okay.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. Yeah. Here, I'll stay in the back.
I'm right behind you. Are we good? 2, 3. I got it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your dedication. It's fairly appreciated.
Following along online or elsewhere, there's a nice MPSS framework information sheet and then the whole list of all the staff members who completed the modules in our document. Okay. Moving on to the next item, we have a public hearing for the CSCA Chapter 388 collective bargaining agreement proposal for negotiations.
Thank you. So we're very eager to get started with negotiations with our classified employees. Nice to see Manny here tonight representing classified employees. I've been working closely with their president Enrique Domo. We've identified the 3 articles that we wish to negotiate jointly on this year. And before we can get started on that, of course, we have to sunshine it and bring it to the board. And so this is a public hearing, so that if anybody would like to comment on our joint proposal, this would be the time to do it.
All right. Open the hearing. Anyone like to make any comments in person? I was just gonna ask if you have any comments on email. Okay. With that being said, we've been given some time. If anyone wants to speak for the public hearing item, they can come up now. You haven't received any emails, so I'm gonna go ahead and close the public hearing. Next up on public communications. So this is the spot on our agenda where people can speak to things that are not listed on our agenda. So I'll just read a little blurb from our agenda on that. In addition to speaking in person, public comment can also be made by email. There's an opportunity to email prior to the meeting. There's also a chance to email during the meeting. And there's a process for submitting your name down for public comment. Do we have any cards submitted for public comment today? No? All right. We have information on the agenda here on public comment, but I'll just open it up and see if there's anyone here to make comment on a non-agenda item. I do not see anyone here interested for public comment. Any on email?
Nothing on email.
Okay. In that case, we'll keep moving along. We'll go on to our standing reports, and we'll start with items from our assistant superintendent. Great.
Well, as usual, the education services world is busy, especially at the beginning of the school year, just ensuring that we have the right curriculum in place and so forth. But I will just comment on a few wonderful items. First, I've had the privilege of attending 3 fantastic back to school nights so far. Looking forward to another tomorrow. All of our teachers and classrooms were really special places to be, and I think our families came out in full force this year. It was really great to see so many families out and really interested in their children's education. It's just kind of like the parks open, you know, full spaces. Last week completed the annual Universal Kindergarten Accountability Report for the state. That was very exciting. And also the annual Title III Accountability Report for the state. So pass through those with fine colors, very excited. Always to make sure that we're attending to the needs of our state, and obviously that those efforts are to ensure kids are doing the right things. This past week, we continued to work on our expanded learning opportunity program plans. So we'll have a plan that we'll be able to present to the board probably at the next meeting. We're looking at some really great courses for kids that we're in after school again this year. So really, really wonderful to see those coming in. Last Thursday, we hosted our monthly Principals, Leaders, and Learning meeting. And as we shared with the board last Friday, we really kind of dug into how to look at diagnostic data and run those reports, and to meet with our staff about what that data means and what we can do with it. Last Friday, we had a PD day with Candace McIsaac and Melissa Roberts, who were the County Office of Education and the Teacher Project, who spent an hour with us on socially responsive education brain, which is wonderful. We hosted almost 100 staff members on that afternoon. And I think it was a really great start to the year. Also, just on the personal side of things, I lost my assistant, Jackie Gomez. She, as you know, received her master's degree in counseling and is now working as a counselor, which is what we had hoped for her. And so as sad as we are for us, we're so happy to see her transition into different work. And with that, we have brought in Stephanie Garcia, who is currently a member of the Santa Cruz Garden staff, and she'll be working with me as Jackie's replacement, and she is amazing. Very excited for that transition. And then just last, Lori Struckmeyer and I have been working with the County Office of Education in partnership to just look at the LCAP adjustments that are later in the board meeting tonight. So very exciting things happening in that.
So I'm just gonna focus on safety and some of the initiatives around school safety. Something really powerful that's happening across the county is the standard command response system, which is an attempt to make sure that all law enforcement agencies, first responders, and school districts are using common terminology, and also using terminology that is better fit for our schools system culture. And so we were able to have representatives from the county office, Brian Wall, as well as law enforcement representatives come out to an AGCO meeting to train all of our administrators on that new system. Very well received. And now we're in the phase of having those teams come out to each of our school sites. We'll have 2 schools trained this Friday. Main Street and Brighton will be trained. And then on October 13th, using our Friday early release day, to the other 2 schools, so Cal and Santa Cruz Gardens will be trained. So very excited that they were able to do multiple schools on days so that we didn't have to drag this out until the to the middle of the school year. And really excited about the consistency and of all law enforcement agencies across the county, including those that represent us, the Sheriff's Office, Capitol PD, are involved with this. Also just like to point out a few events coming up in the district. There's the Great California Shakeout, which is for quick preparedness. I think they're saying it's up to 7 million different people through different agencies are registered to participate on that. And they come up with a real clever way to remember it. It's on 10/19 at what time? 10/19. 10/19 on 10/19. So October 19th at 10/19, our schools will be engaged in an earthquake drill that day, like millions of Californians. October 2nd is the World Day of Bullying Prevention. So schools wear unified color and engage in ways that we can be upstanders instead of bystanders to prevent bullying. They do that all the time. This is just one particular day that we accentuate it. And Bill already alluded to one that I had marked down, and that's October 23rd to the 27th is College and Career Week. Our schools will be doing different activities, to emphasize the importance of preparing for a career, or college preparation after their K-12 education is done. And finally, just getting ready to reboot some teams negotiations we talked about. We'll be doing that with both of our associations, the fiscal prioritization team, which has a lot to look at in terms of finances and declining enrollment and prioritizing facility projects. And then our joint leadership team with this partnership with the City of Capitola City Council, looking to get that rebooted, and that we will do a full plan right now as we speak. So that's all for me for now.
Okay. You want to buy it? Where do we stand with the City of Capitola? And I know we've had some discussions in the past in regards to the field and different things like that. I realize this is on down the road.
Yeah.
But have we kind of talked to them a little bit?
I think I can allude to that in one of the items on the board agenda, which is my goals. So perfect segue into that when we get to it. Sound good?
Yes, sir.
Thanks, sir.
All right, next up we have items from CSBA. Welcome.
Great. Good evening, board members. My name is Manuel Castro. I am the campus supervisor at New Brighton Middle School. I'm happy to represent CSEA today here at the board meeting. I've been with the district for a little under a year, and I like it very much. It's very engaging, working with a bunch of students. I look forward to becoming a teacher myself, so it's a good segue into the education pathway. As for CSEA, we look forward to engaging in negotiations later this year with Mr. Turnbull, and we'd also like to congratulate Stephanie Garcia from Santa Cruz Gardens for her promotion. And great, thank you very much.
Next up, item from SBA.
Yes, good evening. My name's Kelly Freitas and I teach TK at SoCal Elementary. And stepped up to do negotiations, I guess, today. So I'll be learning more about that. But news from us, Opal Cliffs recently celebrated the achievement of a returning student who passed the LPAC taken last spring. Cannot be overstated how hard the student worked on language arts skills to achieve this goal. The student is starting 5th grade with strong iReady math scores as well after also working hard in that area. Sorry, that did not make sense. In other news, joining Opal Cliffs this year is a lovely family dedicated to homeschooling their TK and 3rd grader while traveling through Europe. And just arrived in London from Dublin a couple of days ago. Exciting. I'm like, I want to be that teacher. SoCal Elementary is so grateful to have our new BIA, Leanne Alameda. I had one of her daughters, so it was exciting to see her back and her kids. So she has 3 girls in the district and is working closely with Sasha to continue all the wonderful work that has already been started. The TK and K classes are doing our traditional colors days, so red and orange day today, tomorrow's yellow with overalls with Charlotte, so Thursday's also overall day. And then each day, great turnout with the kids. It's really fun to get started with like just all the kids participating, getting the parents and families on board. And the parents dress up as well sometimes. And we've been trying to share it with the staff, so it's been fun to get the staff to participate. Yeah, tomorrow, the ELAP program is also up and running, providing many supportive and enriching opportunities. I know we have quite a few at SoCal and yeah. And the other schools as well. New Brighton felt good about starting the school year with students having their Chromebooks and being prepared for the first few weeks of school. Staff would like for there to be consideration of an adjusted timeline for assessment so that there are not so many happening all at once. Main Street had a great back to school night and appreciated the opportunity to greet all of our wonderful new families. And like SoCal, the Main Street ELOP program has started and staff is happy to see so many students have already signed up. And in other news, Main Street is seeking more yard supervisors. Sounds like they're on a hunt for more people to participate. The SCA wants to officially welcome all the new hires in the district this year, both certificated and class. And that's all from us. Thank you.
On to items from trustees. Go down the line.
Okay, so I have some acknowledgements. If you still have time, today is reading book day. I don't know if you can finish one today, but at least start one. For our older lifelong learners, Career College Extension is out there. They have a pretty extensive schedule of art classes, and so that's a great opportunity. Want to acknowledge New Brighton Middle School for the adult education English language learners class that we're having there. It's been a partnership that we've had with Adult Ed for many years. And then, of course, Capitola Recreation. So they have the after school rec club. So, and I was surprised to find out parents night out. So the first Saturday of every month, they will do childcare from 5 to 9. This Sunday, is it? I believe is the Art and Wine Festival. So come down and visit us. We'll be down there selling tickets. And that's it for me.
Wow, I love that. Yeah, I love it when you focus on like that.
So education
Lifelong
learners.
learners, 100%. Yeah, we always forget there's a whole other section to that. Boy, well, I mean, I'm just excited to be back in board meetings and have school back and getting us back on the path of education. And I had the pleasure of going to the Main Street Open House, which I thought was just phenomenal. What a great job that school does. The teachers were engaged. I love the classrooms. I've also went to New Brighton, you know, this kind of goes for both of them, but to see the amount of effort that the teachers, I mean, I'd love to commend all the teachers, because I know that it seems like such a short time for them to really get their classrooms up to speed, and the work and dedication that they put into that. I mean, I love walking into a classroom and seeing all the different college flags, you see the American flag and all the college flags, and really getting our kids, with that mindset of, this is a stepping stone to college and a career and everything else. And I just think the teachers do such a good job, and they're so engaged with the parents. I love watching them use the tech and the keyboards and the TVs and everything else to really get the parents involved, and the work they put into it. I thought was just amazing. So that was a lot of fun for me, getting back into this one. Thanks.
So it's the season, I've been busy. I went to the SoCal Elementary Back to School Night. So awesome to see just everybody in action, see the teachers doing their thing. That was really exciting. Main Street Back to School Night, I got to see our new principal, Ms. Kay, in action. That was awesome. And she hit, she talked about attendance, and she talked about the MTSS, which is great, to educate the parents. I was pleased with that. New Brighton Back to School Night. That's, just the cheerleaders performed. It's just the whole, and I felt for my daughter of all the places she's walking with all her classes. And then this is different. Jimmy Panetta had a town hall in Capitola, and I attended that. So part of the reaching out to representatives, and also some of the Capitola City Council members were there. So that was great to just make connections, get our district more on the radar. It was a busy time.
Thank you. I too attended some back to school nights. Unfortunately, I was at a conference, so I had to miss Main Streets, but I got to go to SoCal and New Brighton, and looking forward to the gardens tomorrow. And yeah, definitely. And New Brighton, I was a little more in my parent role, yeah, but definitely feeling that walking, zigzagging back and forth, and teachers having to share information with parents in such a quick amount of time for every period. 6 presentations in a row. It's very impressive, but it's always wonderful to see our back to school nights and our open houses in the spring, and not just the joy of actually seeing the presentations in the classroom, but seeing the kids and the families enjoying the space, and seeing even this early in the year the level of comfort folks have with the school community. So that was really wonderful. I think that's all I can think of at the moment. So thank you, everybody. All right, move on to our presentation and discussion items. So our first item is the discussion regarding the superintendent's evaluation process and whole thing.
Well, thank you. Back for my 8th year, and always very appreciative of how this board works as a partner in my evaluation to seek what we all want, and that's continuous improvement. And so the first step in the evaluation process, regardless of position, is to set some goals, and then of course throughout the year, give regular updates on the operational items that are being used to execute those goals. So with that in mind, here we are, step 1. Really focus on goals. We have the board policy there that kind of guides the process. And then I will go into the first goal, which is to enhance the district communication, branding, and profile. So this is something that I alluded to. We have a great district. We want everybody to know about it. We want more people to know about it. So how will we do that? We can do that in a number of ways, including superintendent newsletters, tracking the number of views those newsletters have, using video as a tool for news. Newspaper articles, for example, we got told SoCal Times, parent meetings with the superintendent, having teams in the community like the fiscal prioritization team and the joint leadership committee, having a state of the district mailer prior to the community forum. Community forum kind of like our big event of the year, so making sure that we get something out in advance of that. Ensure that teams like the FPT and JLC are engaged in a discussion of bracing for declining enrollment. As much as we want to deliver the good news, we also don't want our community partners surprised by challenges that we're experiencing. And as a one measure, every year when we do our LCAP survey, we always ask our community, how are we doing with communication? There's like an old cliche that pretty much every problem any organization has can kind of be drilled down to communication. And so we like to ask that every year. And although we annually get good feedback on how we are communicating as a whole district, we can always do better. And so we have that as one thing that we can look at. And so definitely want to continue that in that vein, but always look to do better and better and get the word out about our great district. There's a current article just out in the September edition of the Capital Soquel Times on school safety. And in this day and age, there's nothing more high profile and more important than school safety. So I'd like to let the community know what we're doing and not make them come and ask what we're doing. The second goal I have down is to develop a long-term facilities master plan. And so a few years ago, of course, we had a chance to tackle one big project, and that was to get rid of old portables and replace them with new ones. And we're kind of in that phase where we need to identify our next set of major projects. So how do we do that? We do that with lots of input. When we work with the fiscal prioritization team, we don't just ask the people on that team. The whole point of that team is that it represents all constituents across the district, and that each member of that team has responsibility to take it back to those constituents and bring back their input as we identify and prioritize projects to use our capital facilities going on. And so there's some obvious examples there. So rather than just being obtuse and not mentioning obvious examples, big one is fields. I don't want to prioritize for the community, but I think it's safe to say that that is one that will come up in our discussion. The field that all of our sites need from TLC, to say the least. And we, of course, we want to get input from the community on what that might look like and how we go about it. Just as one example, there's other examples too, like the building over at Brighton Middle School. That is identified as building J and will one day be modern science classrooms, just as an example. So really honing in on facilities and getting community and staff input on, can't do everything at once, so we prioritize. And finally, attendance. This is something that I think you'll hear in just about every forum that you might be engaged in, whether it's at this local level, whether it's at the county level for sure, whether it's at the state level, and I believe in venture to say across our country. Attendance has always been important for all the obvious reasons. We have great teachers. How do students learn from those great teachers? By being in their classrooms and being present. That's the most important thing. And you know, as we seek to get back on track and you know, after the pandemic, continuously improving from that baseline of data, that's only going to happen if students are present and learning from their teachers. It also impacts us fiscally, of course. We are still one of the states that is not just funded on enrollment, but is funded on average daily attendance of those in enrollment. Pre-COVID, we were on a good upswing. We were on a trajectory where we were improving every year over the course of 4 years. You could say incrementally in small margins, but when you're talking about attendance of 1,600 to 1,900 students, incrementally is good. And so we had bypassed the 95% mark, had our eyes set on the 96% mark for average daily attendance. And of course, COVID came along, changed our world in a lot of ways. Last year, the full year of in-person learning, we were below 92%. And so that is really important to address that and for the educational purposes. But like I said, there's also the strong fiscal component to go with it. And so how do we do it? That which gets measured gets done, right? And so it's bringing the light to it. We've had success with this in a lot of areas, for example, with our suspension data. We put a lot of focus on our suspension data and identified strategies to reduce suspensions, and we've been successful in that. The same thing goes with attendance. We have to shine a light on it. Our schools are already doing a lot, so it's not like we have to reinvent this wheel from the beginning, but it's making sure that we never lose sight of it, that we always keep it on the front burner, so to speak. So you'll see across the county, we're doing this as superintendents, leaning into the resources on Attendance Works, which is a great resource. It's not the only resource, but it's a great resource. And really using those 5 big areas of engaging students and parents, recognizing good attendance, offering incentives, monitoring attendance data and practice, providing personalized outreach, and then if there are identified programmatic barriers, identifying those and addressing those. So those are the big areas. How do you do that? You do it with lots and lots of time and attention. So in newsletters, accentuating how important attendance is to parents. Reminding them that it might just seem like a day here or a day there, but it adds up, and over time. Every day of learning builds on itself. And students that miss just a couple days a month, that can really start to take a toll. Identifying what chronic absenteeism is. That's not the benchmark we want to shoot for. We want much lower than that, but chronic absenteeism by the state is identified the students who are absent 10% or more of school days. So that's 180 school days. That means students that are absent 18 or more days. Last year in our district, for example, the last couple of years, we've been right around the 30% mark on that. 30% of our students with 18 or more absences throughout the school year. That's unacceptable. I will say in context, it's better than the state and the county are doing. So I think it's important. It's not to say that it's okay. It's not okay. We will address that number and it will go down. But in context, we're experiencing the same challenges as all of our colleagues across the county and state. I think that's important to identify that context. Doing what our schools do, but doing it on a even more regular basis and sending information home from the district office as well as from the school sites on things like one of the things that Attendance Works has is routines that rock, right? And so reminders, like as families get into habits, that little things can make a big difference. Bedtimes is often one, right? And that there's a lights out time, but also those morning routine, putting the alarm clock, for the student across the room instead of right next to their bed, so they have to get up. Turning the lights on if it's a student that doesn't like to get up on time, making sure that when the alarm clock goes off, we turn the lights on. It's not only the big things and these big buckets, right? Sometimes it's the very granular in having that engaging parents and families and students in ways that we can give them very practical tips. Incentives don't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be you're going to win a trip to Disneyland or something, right? Students respond to being recognized. And one of the things that we've really learned about attendance over the years is it doesn't have to be perfect. We're not shooting for perfection. Perfect attendance, as many of us probably grew up with, often means a lot of students are out of contention early in the year and no longer incentivized. And also, kids really do get sick. They shouldn't be coming to school and they're sick. That's counterproductive to everything that we're trying to do in schools, and especially in light of the last few years. But improving attendance, identifying students who are improving attendance year to year. Acknowledging good attendance, good solid attendance. Incentivizing classrooms where teachers are doing extra work to get their classes, to get their students to come and have a high attendance rate, recognizing that. Again, it doesn't have to be something big. It might be a little bit of extra recess time. We don't have to spend oodles and oodles of money on it. But incentivizing good attendance and improving attendance and having lots of specifics. Our principals work great together. So when something's working at one school, they're going to share that with each other. So rather than predetermining all of that, it has to be an ongoing discussion and sharing the resources. Monitoring the data. It's one of the most important parts, right? And when we were really doing good, pre-COVID, what we did is we ran month-to-month comparisons, and we sat down at every one of our ADCOs and said, what was a good September in 2014-15? What did September look like in 2015-16? Rather than just saying every month, let's do better, we were really specific about, hey, certain months are going to have a cold and flu impact, right? So attendance, we know attendance in November, December is going to get hit and be impacted by cold and flu season. But what did November, December look like in previous years, and what's a target to shoot for? Having those targets, I think, makes a big difference in thinking about improvement and getting something to shoot for and something to celebrate. It might be that last year, pre-COVID, in November, December, 93% was an average. 94% then all of a sudden looks really good if you're measuring it month to month, apples to apples. Having ongoing lists, and we do have this, and schools have it, and we have it at the district level, is students who are already on track to be chronically absent, right? So we've been in school about 15 days now, I think. So for a student who's got 2 or 3 absences, they're already on track for that. Now, maybe there was a legitimate illness, right? But as the months go by, monitoring those students and intervening quickly, reaching out with personalized outreach. We have so much staff at our schools that care about families and want to engage families, not just students, right? It has to be a whole family approach. And so reaching out to those families, not just with the letters are an important part, letting families know, putting them on notice that there's a concern at different benchmarks throughout the year, and we have that systematized to go out, visitors to go out. But also, what can we do? What can we do to help? Is it your child's having kids, are they're fighting and going to school, and you need some support with that? Or is there something else going on? That could be a whole host of things, right? In that personal outreach that goes out, and we have fantastic counselors, for example, who can help with linkages to outside agencies. Is there a food issue? Is there a hunger issue that we can help with? Is there a mental health issue that we can help with either at school or with an outside linkage? So that personalized approach is in place, but we need to continuously improve on that. And then finally, looking for any system barriers, right? Like those might not always rise to the surface, but what if students for one particular apartment project, for example, we're seeing a higher rate? Is there something we can do to get into that setting and talk to families and see how we can remove some barriers? So sometimes it's family by family, sometimes there's a system-wide barrier. So it's a collective all of those approaches. None of them work in isolation. It's not just about prizes, but incentives help, for an example. But it's so much more than that. It's a connection to families and making sure that we're taking as much as possible an approach of how can we help? How can we help remove the barriers and not kind of starting at a punitive level? So that's a big goal for this year. You can see the data there on the track that we were on, moving incrementally, but always in the right direction, going from 2015-16 to 2018-19. A 0.5% in the attendance world is big. And then you can see our chronic absentee data. Again, we were on a good track. I say good, we can always do better, but we were on a good track from 2016-17 to 2018-19. 2019-20, of course, was the year we'd all like to forget. But then 2021, that data you got to take with a big, in context that it was the year of distance learning. And so that was monitored in a different way. 21-22, the last year that we have official data from the California Department of Education on, 25.9% of our students chronically absent. Not good, need to do better. But look at it in context of the state and the county. At least lets you know that even during those tough years, we were doing a lot of work to try to engage our families. I do expect, looking at our internal data for 22-23, that will be over 30% for 22-23. And I would certainly expect that you will see similar numbers from the county and state. Again, this is something that is not a SoCal challenge. We will address it as a SoCal challenge, but it's a county, state, and country problem. I'm really supported by the fact that all of the superintendents in the county are working together on this, including messaging, including sharing strategies. Dr. Sabah has, galvanized this effort, and it will be a focus for us at that level as well. So I'll be able to take everything I learned from there and bring it back to our district so that we're working collectively on this big challenge. The last thing I included in there was an article from EdSource that just kind of accentuates what I've been talking about, but this really is a state-wide challenge. And we're going to do better this year. I know we are. Those are my goals for this year. Welcome to the discussion.
Want to get started? Questions, comments, thoughts?
Sure. So I like the ideas, enhanced district communication, branding, and profile. I think all of them kind of, I guess, how do we measure them? Like that's usually my question when anybody that I work with has goals, what's how do we measure them? How do we determine you were successful or not at the end of the year? Specifically enhanced district communication, branding, and profile. That's certainly a laudable goal. I don't know how that's measurable, and maybe we can certainly talk about that. Long-term facilities master plan, that seems a little bit more obvious when we see the plan and get an idea of what we're looking at. The third one was decrease chronic absenteeism and increase ADA. I think that's great, and I think that's certainly a terrific focus. I think you said, you're mentioning we're like 91.9% or something like that now, and I'm curious what you believe the metric of success is. Do you move that to 94%, 95%? how do we get back to where we were? Or maybe it's, out of the 18 days, 30% of students, are absent 18 days. So what's the, do we knock that down to 20%, or is it a 10% increase, And, I've been reading, obviously doing a lot of research on all this. I know a lot of this you can't do in a year. So maybe this is part of a 5-year plan. Maybe the goal is, this year to move it from 30% to 28%. And in 5 years, we'll be down to 20% or something like that, make it part of a larger goal. And how, how do we judge the success of your actions? I mean, I believe you're great at anything, Scott. I love what you do here at the school. I'm more in terms of what we can do to really determine, gosh, great plan. This worked great, or this didn't work too well. Let's move off of this, that avenue and keep back on this where we've had a great amount of success. And, where do you feel the numbers are? So at the end of the year, we could say, Scott moved that chronic absenteeism from, 95% to 90%, whatever it might be, you know what I mean? And something concrete, so when we're judging, the job you did or something like that, or we're determining whether it's successful or not, we have something concrete to say, Scott did this, this was a terrific job, or there was success, you know what I mean?
Would you like me to respond or let everybody go around?
Sure.
Either way.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great idea. We always want to be data driven. I think sometimes there's also, just like with our students, so there's product data. And so I think like on the communication and branding piece of it, some of it is product, right?
Sure.
Are there newsletters, are there flyers, are there community forums, do we have surveys? Those kind of things that the product sometimes in and of itself is the evidence. And so, and then a metric like the question on the LCAP survey, just to the people that matter. How is district communication to you? Because I can think it's great. I can think I put this cool logo on everything. It's really slick. If the people that are receiving it don't find it meaningful, they're going to tell us in that data, right? And so I think a combination of product and data, but I understand your point. The branding and communication and profile one's a little bit harder to put a number on. That's my thought on that. And then on the attendance data, it is, to me, it is very tempting to pick a number. And if the board directs me to pick a number, I'll pick a number. I do think, looking at the flip side of that, it can be a little arbitrary. So I've never been in a post pandemic world before. And so, yes, I could say, let's get it down to 25%, but is that shooting, from 30 to 25% for chronic absenteeism? Is that shooting too low or too high? I don't know. I know we have to be better. So I think the goal is continuous improvement and regular monitoring and regular reporting out of how that's going. I also think continuing to look at it in context matters. If we get it down to 25%, my goal was 20. Not a bad year. If everybody else in the county and the state's chronic absenteeism went up, I think there's a lot of variables that could make it arbitrary to just pick a number. But I understand the desire to say pass fail. And if that's what the construct board wants me to have, I'll pick the number and we'll do it.
Well, and I don't think we're not trying to give you some unachievable goal. We understand
Yeah.
The uphill battle you have with a lot of this, especially with the pandemic and everything that's going around,
Yeah.
We want nothing more than to see.
I'm not feeling or insinuating anything else. Yeah, no, I feel the love.
Yeah. And I'll also mention, as long as I seem to be going, I'd love to see something too in regards to academics, in our schools. And I realize how important, we do terrific with English language, I as far as last time I checked the dashboard, we were very high, and I understand our math was low, as it is in a lot of the county schools and a lot of the state schools. But what can we do to increase, whether it's through iReady, or whether it's through, just, math to grade level, and I think 5th grade and 8th grade are obviously pretty good areas to focus on or something like that. And maybe show some sort of a, here's where we were, last year. And it's really hard with the pandemic too. That's why these are, I'm just coming with suggestions. I don't have specifics, but I'd love to see, last year, 45%, I think was the last time I heard a figure, 45% of our 8th graders were to math, to grade level in mathematics, and I was wondering if maybe we could move that to 50 or 55. And then the year after that, maybe, I don't know what the right thing is, and that's why I look for you and you know, Dr. G, you know, on what you guys think is, you know, where should our students be? Is it a 5% to grade level progression year to year? Is it 10%? Is it 3? Is it 2? Is it 1? You know, is it, God, let's just keep it the same. We're so lucky that they still understand how to do 2 + 2, you know? But, you know, I'd love to see something that's really academically been in the people that I talk to that talk to me, you know, that's what's important to them. You know, is really the academics and keeping our kids at the, you know, the highest level that they can.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, that's our core mission, academics, right? So that's always a goal, it's always the goal in the help out. And, you know, so part of the superintendent's goals are sometimes pull out 2 or 3 things to focus on. You could be focused on everything. So it's certainly add an academic goal. And in addition to what's in the LCAP, you know, just to accentuate that in my superintendent's goals, I'd be glad to do that. But I just want to make sure that's not, I don't want the fact that there wasn't a specific one in these goals to be, you know, like representative, that's not important to me. It's extremely important to me.
Of course.
It's represented in the LCAP. So it's not, like it's just an mission, but I would be glad to add, that as a goal. What's the goal? The goal is continuous improvement, right? And it's also represented sometimes in a little bit less linear way. I mean, we have the California dashboard, which is really the state's way of monitoring schools. And that's based on a lot of things. It's based on scores and just sheer numbers, but it's also based on improvement, right? So that a school in a certain area may be lower than another school, but showed much more improvement. You will see that represented in the graphs and colors on the dashboard. So it does, you know, not to complicate it and say, because sometimes I know that can seem like you're trying to, you know, move away from a real hard and fast goal. That's not my purpose.
No, I actually thought that'd be
number.
even harder, because when you look at the dashboard, I mean, what does it take to get from low to average? What does it take to get from average or to high or from high to very high, you know? That's kind of a nebulous thing, and I didn't want to put that on you because I don't know what all the metrics are that go into those grades and those scores.
Right.
You know, so I didn't want to say like you have to hit it on 10 different fronts
Right.
in order to move us from low in math to average.
Right. Or
You
school
know?
by school.
Right,
So-
you know, so there's a lot of different ways you can look at it, and I tried to pick something that I thought, honestly, like we have great teachers anyways, I try to pick something that, you know, I feel the kids are just naturally, as they are in school more and they get used to it, that they're naturally gonna progress, the math scores should keep going up and keep rising, you know, and I thought that was just a, you know, a goal that I thought we could all really kind of get behind, and it was a natural progression.
I'm glad to do that. And it's not complicated in this sense. 21-22 represented a new baseline, right? And so that really removed any, not that there was any excuse making, but, you know, not having to anymore go, well, you know, there's COVID. It's like, well, 21-22, we're just coming out of that, and that's a new baseline. And so we do have that to go by, and we have, we'll be looking at our 22-23 school scores soon. And so we'll be able to see where we have improved or not, according to the 21-22 baseline. I'd be glad to build some goals from there that are showing continuous improvement.
And when do we see it?
Probably, well, you'll be hearing about some informal analysis, but probably formal in October.
October, okay, yeah, I know it's coming up, I mean, what a neat, that's a great time for us, you know, a lot of the board members, we live off the data and, you know. Okay. That's great, appreciate it, Scott, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I have a couple questions. Some of, like, for example, with the, goal number 1, some of these come out at kind of regular intervals, like the newspaper article, is it a monthly column?
Monthly, I don't hit every month. There's some months where I don't produce an article.
It's about every month.
But the newspapers produce every month.
Okay, so you're shooting for kind of about a month. What about superintendent newsletters?
You know, I haven't decided on that. It's relatively, the SoCal Scoop is a relatively new one, and so I didn't want to box in beforehand, say weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. I kind of wanted to get a feel for how it's going.
Yeah.
And because you don't want to be in that situation where it's like, gosh, I just gotta produce something, you know, just because I said it was gonna be this often. So that one I'd like to kind of leave and see how it goes this year.
And maybe the range would be 1 to 2 months? Does that seem like a range, or did it even make it range?
Minimum monthly, yeah.
Okay. And video news, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I think video is a great tool. We did some last year. If you remember the makerspace that you mentioned earlier, we did a nice little video news shoot on that where we interviewed the principal, we interviewed some students, we interviewed a parent, we interviewed one of the folks that came out from RAF. and just produced I think it was about a 90-second news video clip and put that out. So integrating those into the SoCal Scoop is just one more way. We've done podcasts in the past, so just looking to use all the different technologies to be able to bring to light all the great things happening.
And is that on the district website or is that something that goes emails out to parents?
Done it both ways.
We have a YouTube page.
How are parents alerted if there's a meeting?
On that one, I think I sent it out. I think I might have just sent it out to the SoCal community though, since it was SoCal specific, and using that as a specific example. But generally, like for the newsletters, and my idea would be to link some of those videos within the newsletter, so it's kind of all in one nice, neat, one pager place.
Yeah.
But in one page, you can have a lot of different information accessible.
Yeah.
And so on those, they're posted and they're sent out via, usually via text. Because that's the way people receive information.
And then something I'm noticing just now in this moment, it might be nice to put a focus on maybe ELAC or, second language family groups.
Sure.
To specifically, focus some of your district communication towards those groups.
Absolutely.
Sometimes we have those book groups, I mean, I don't know how you would choose to do that, but I'd love to see something specific to
English learning.
second language, learning family.
Yes.
I just lost my place, but yeah, so that makes sense.
That's a great idea.
Would someone else like to go? I just lost my place.
Oh, literally, not, what's your face?
Literally, yeah.
Sure. I'll go.
So I like these goals. On the communication branding goal 1, if you kind of want to, there's a way to have set up some kind of a benchmark. And so, but it costs money. So if the board wants to spend the money, you would have a beginning focus group thing, and then at a certain time in the future, you would have another one and see, okay, did you know about us? No. Do you know about us? Yes. So there's that.
I like that idea.
Why would it cost money?
You had to pay people to be in a focus group.
Parent volunteering to be in a focus group?
Well, you could, but you want to make sure that there's no like one group thing that biases the process.
Those are probably the parents that are more engaged anyways, that would know about a focus group or be involved.
And are we just talking parents or the community? Anyhow, so there's that. I would also appreciate it if we could get in, when we're talking about our communications, if we can get, like you were saying, the one pager thing. If we can get all our social media links in one place, so that, you know, we can go like, okay, I can check Instagram or whatever, you know, that kind of thing, and everything's right there. So there's that, and a second goal on the master plan. So we have, you know, it's not quite a hard deadline, but by 2030, we are supposed to be at capping our greenhouse emissions to the 2019 amount. So whatever we were using in 2019, that is going to be our cap in 2030. And I will tell you, in 2019, we didn't have all the air conditioning we have now. So putting in the solar to cover that is going to save our behind, because it's a hard number on the 2030 thing. And you could probably be working, because I hear they're starting now, work with the city of Capitola's climate action plan. We're part of that. So,
Well, and I would say that later on tonight, we're going to be talking a little bit about solar and, you know,
Right.
maybe looking forward to flip the switch event. And so I think that can all be baked into the facilities master plan.
yeah, the city of Capitola is mandated by, you know, I think Prop 38 or something. I can't remember which one it was, to along with everybody else in the state of California, to have an action plan. Schools are not required, but we fall within our jurisdiction we're in. So there's that. And as far as absenteeism, so, you know, this is not a popular topic, but you know, thinking about this, I would like to have somebody tell me why truancy is not child endangerment. And if it is, then as mandated reporters, we should be dialing up 911 every time somebody hits that 30-minute thing.
Well, I will just say that I think all levels of response are important. right? And so sometimes it's a family that just needs a hand up for a certain reason. Sometimes there is negligence, and there's different ways to go about that, right? There's engagement with law enforcement and wellness checks, student attendance review teams, student attendance review boards. So I think you gotta have all the tools and all the responses ready. And not do a one size fits all, but I know what you mean. Sometimes the heavy handed approach is necessary to get the message across.
And so we need to be comfortable with the fact that that will be happening. And that's it for me.
On the spot, so back to that communication, well, I'd like to second what Phil said. I'd love to see in your goals. A page where a parent can find all the sources that they can get information from. For the
Yeah, what they-
Yeah, the webpage, yeah, I think that's.
Start doing that with the superintendent's message page. And
Yeah.
just continue to build that.
Yeah, that sounds great. And then the other thing I'd like to point out is that the LCAP survey is, I don't think that's exactly a great measure of if parents feel like they're getting enough communication.
Okay.
It's not, it's, because when we think about the total number of people that fill out that survey, it's, am I remembering, is it maybe 400,000? So it's not, so I bet we can find a better way to do that.
Okay. So you want like closer to 90 or 100% people responding.
Or a different measurement system.
Measurement system. Okay.
Yeah.
Not necessarily surveying parents.
Oh, no, I mean, I think surveying parents is good, but yeah, more, a higher percentage.
Higher percentage of parents responding. Okay.
I think that, yeah, does that make sense?
Okay,
And you mentioned tracking it too, so looking at how many parents are
Yeah.
viewing the different things.
I'll show that with you every Friday.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a good metric too, to keep an eye on, because I think that's something, how do we keep people engaged? You know, I know when I was on the home school club and doing all these things, and, you know, it was the same parents the whole time.
Sure.
You know, that were really engaged and being a part of the school and doing different things, you know, and yeah, how do you reach the parents that we don't see all the time in those little communities, sub-communities within the community, you know, and make sure every student and every parent is represented.
so I think we also need to be clear about on goal one, is the goal product or is the goal results or both?
We're measuring results.
Oh, so, okay, so it's not,
And
One
that
will
is
lead
part
to
of it.
another.
so,
Part of it. We're gonna See those articles.
okay, so it is product and then the measured results.
Both.
Right.
Right, okay, which means that some benchmarks have to be set for the results.
Right, we have, what you said, how many parents we've seen read the newsletters and open things up and things like that, and I know George has that, has those.
I did it online.
Oh, terrific, yeah, so maybe we can, you know, use that as a baseline or something like that, and, you know.
And then we do some research to see what is customary with other school districts. Like you were saying, always the same parents.
Right.
And so what would you say your response percentage was? 5%?
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be what we would expect.
I'm hopeful if you connect with the UAC parent groups.
English learners.
Yeah,
Got that
you
noted.
know, bring in some people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one thing that we noticed too with kind of the closed session, you know, was the lack of counselors. And I mean, it seems like we're at the tipping point right now, you know.
School session.
Right, no, but I mean, yeah,
Yeah, Stephanie, we can bring up at another point in time.
Yeah.
yeah, no, it wasn't, yeah, it wasn't all that, but yeah, as you were saying. Okay.
I think with all of these goals, we do tend to struggle sometimes with wanting a concise sort of unit of measurement,
sure.
and the question of is it the product, or is it the final product, or is it seeing progress, seeing efforts, and really it's all.
It's all.
It's all.
We struggle out with
Um,
grading students, you know, everybody, you know, people will say they don't want that old, you know, is the A through F system antiquated, but what's the first thing we look for, is if you've got A, B, or C, not if the student improved on how they wrote this essay, right? That's a little harder to hang your hat on. I understand we want something more to hang our hat on, black and white.
And with, so with goal number one, I see that word, you know, enhance, right? Enhance district communication, branding and profile, and there's temptation to, we get a little bit of benchmark, we do a one question survey sent out to the community, where are you now, where are we later, maybe, but I mean, I'm happy to put that in your hands as to how you think we could maybe just get feedback, you know, between the end of last year, where we are now,
Sure.
and April, May.
Sure.
Making sure that all of the solid efforts in the area also reach the intended audience. I know in the past we've used our government partners, like our county supervisors offices and city government, et cetera, to maybe help us get messaging across. So that may be something to look into, again, not just when we're going out for bonds or parcels.
Sure.
You know, great way. They also, they might have newsletters and things that we can piggyback on, especially with the social media links.
Mhm.
So I'm happy with that goal. Yeah, we are well. It is well timed to discuss master planning, so I'm happy to see that as a goal, because it also gets easy to confuse the superintendent's goals with district goals and with the LCAP. So I appreciate that you wrote the LCAP in here as well, because obviously these are goals or specific things you're adding extra focus on top of everything else. So, but also I know my own work life, if I put specific goals on paper, then that's gonna make sure I keep my attention on right here. So, right. So appreciate the master plan, and I'm really excited to hear from the groups and get that input. And I don't think anything could possibly be more important at this time, really, than the absenteeism and the increased aid dealing with the chronic absenteeism, increasing the ADA, and to me that ties, I mean, to all of us, I'm sure it ties in so closely with talking about reaching specific academic goals. So I'm really neutral on whether you add a fourth goal on specific academic, because I see that like 100% married in with goal number 3, but that.
I certainly hope they go hand in
I
hand.
think-
If we get them in the
Yes.
seats more, they're gonna learn more. But
Yes,
I'm sure I can strike some kind of happy medium.
yeah, I mean, because I think very much that that's gonna be a piece of the evidence connected to the improved attendance rate. I think I have any answers specific, so everyone was sorry for thorough.
With the goal number 3, the chronic absenteeism and increasing the ADA, I like the site attendance works. I think those 5 suggestions for where to put your effort are great. I would like to see maybe in your goal specifically how you're gonna, even just one way. Are you gonna do all the categories? Are you gonna, like, for example, recognize good and improved attendance? Like, are you like, and to see, are you doing a specific strategy? Because then everybody knows that's the strategy. All, you know, everyone at the school is kind of working that strategy. I feel like this could be a great place for you to guide our schools in how we're specifically in the use of strategies. So on the revision idea, I'd love to see something specific. And maybe you don't choose all 5 of those categories, maybe you pick 1 or 2, but specifically, what are we gonna be focused on? Because whatever you say, the teachers are gonna do, they're gonna have the attendance parties, or they're gonna pass out the certificates, or, you know, whatever it is.
I would not argue with the idea of, you know, identifying specific issues. I would just kind of reframe it a little bit. It's not what I say they're gonna do. It's what we decide collaboratively, and then we monitor that, right? Versus a top-down approach. I know you didn't mean it that way. I just wanted to clarify.
Oh, maybe I didn't understand, so you'll talk with teachers about which strategy to use?
Well, we talk with administrators and our principals, talk with teachers. Like, I think it has to be a collective approach. It won't work if I say everybody's gonna do an attendance party on the 2nd Tuesday of every month, and you're gonna award people who have 95% attendance. That might sound good, but top-down approaches don't work. So it has to be a collective issue, a collective effort, and sometimes it may change. It may change. We may think this one thing is gonna be the silver bullet, and then we realize it's not, and we have to be nimble enough to change. And so while I really like the idea of specific approaches and saying this either did or didn't work, I think we have to stay nimble, and we have to also keep the, you know, the doorways of communication open with each other, not just that it was my goal and thou shalt, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, like we have to be able to say, no, that wasn't a good idea, let's try this. And I have to be egoless enough to hear that and accept that and implement that.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I do think though that there are methods that are more effective than others.
Sure.
and that,
There's research-based approaches.
yeah, research-based approaches that could be very useful in this role to kind of give some specificity to where we're gonna put our.
Absolutely, I agree.
So jump on that, as we develop those practices, I'm hoping that they'll work their way into the principal's handbook. So that they're consistent across the district. And on goal 1, way back in the past, it didn't last for long, but we tried, board highlights. So, board highlights were put into the newsletter that went home to the parents. And so that might be a way for you to communicate with everybody as superintendent.
Okay.
I'm not sure what today's would be, but
We could even have fun with the video part, maybe,
Videos.
we could have some students involved or something like that and bring them in with a camera and, do like the whole thing. And that was another note that I had was design ways students could explore college and trade pathways. And I know Phil brought up a really good point. And I don't know, it was probably a little while ago, but
okay.
yeah, but no, with either wood shop or, some different things to, make sure our kids know that, there's a lot of different things out there too.
We have a great partner in your
Yeah.
future of our business.
Right, like an AV class, or wood shop or, mechanics and things like that, yeah.
Yeah, the college in Career Week is a great place to start, and we have a great partner for
sure.
our future of our business, and they have lots and lots of contacts and lots of fields. Teachers can submit requests on just about anything, in order to get an expert in a particular area to come to their class or to come to their grade level. And talk about different career paths out there, because it's so important, I always get around and say, I used to think, when I was a kid, I thought an engineer was the person who drove the train. I didn't know what an engineer did, right? I literally didn't know what they did. Being exposed to that at an early age is crucial.
Well, let me know. I've got it in here. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's neat. And one other thing, I don't know how to incorporate this into the goals or anything like that, but just something that I struggle with my kids. They were here, they went to Main Street, New Brighton, and now up to high school. And, the one thing that they didn't pick up great study habits. One didn't, one did. The one who's an avid did, the one who didn't take avid just doesn't know all those things. And do we have something for our kid, this might be off topic or vehicle or whatever, but some way to keep them learning how to study, because nobody studied during the pandemic, and now they're back in school and we're still not giving homework most of the time, and they have a class in school where they can finish their homework. But when it does come time to high school, like you got a rude awakening, like all of a sudden, oh wow, 2-3 hours a night, I've got to do this. How do I study? What do I do? Is it flashcards? Is it this, or this? I don't know if that's something we could consider for either goals or a pathway for our kids to just help them learn how to study a little bit more and give them some better tools. I know Mr. Z did a great job, with his class, and I don't know the kids who don't take that class have that, opportunity. So.
I mean, I guess I have two thoughts. I think all of our teachers encourage strong study habits. So that's one thing. And parent communication on, reinforcing those study habits is really important. The leap to a discussion on homework is a big leap, and there's lots of philosophical underpinnings to that.
Newsletter to parents.
So. Yeah, that might be a leap into something that would be like a very robust year-long study in and of itself, right? And every district has a culture and a philosophy, so.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing two separate things.
Yeah, a little bit. Like I said, there's just some things thoughts I had.
How to study sounds like a YouTube video.
Yeah, no, it's serious.
Teams that walk.
You got newsletters, now you got content, that's half the battle.
Yeah, there you go.
Right, TikTok.
Scott Trimble on.
We need page favors.
Turnbull to.
And with goal two, what are we looking at with evidence? Is it gonna be, meeting notes? Is it gonna be the number of meetings? You're gonna share info with them?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
share how so I think, that's one thing, and sometimes these things can feel like a one-time shot, like whenever I talk about these, again, if I'm doing my job. I'm talking to you about these regularly, all kinds of formats, with board meetings and Friday updates, right, so, it can feel sometimes like we have to answer every single question on goals and. Including how every goal is gonna be executed, but I think it has to be ongoing communication, and I think on something like facilities master plan, it's like, how is the community and the staff being given opportunities to have input onto that, and whether we're using the facilities master plan.
In the past, the board approved the maintenance plan. So, we'll get a presentation and then the chance to say aye or no. And probably more than one presentation, because here's what we have so far. And I would suggest that it be an aspirational list, not a what we can afford list.
Right, yeah, absolutely, master
Make
plan.
your list,
Well,
and you prioritize.
you have a master plan, but sometimes we have a tendency to say, no, we'll never get it, so don't even put it down. So when I say aspirational, I mean those things that you don't think you're gonna get, or what the heck. Put it out there.
Not necessarily that we're gonna have an adopted long-term facilities master plan by the end of the school year, right? I mean, that sounds very, very aspirational to me, like maybe it's possible, but I mean. Process is probably more important than having a product by an attainable date.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay. If it happens, fine, okay, that's a lot of teamwork, I mean, really, like, for authentic stakeholder involvement, not to mention all those the other stakeholder work we're doing this year. Want to make sure, yes. The goal is to make significant progress towards us.
These are like holding 3 town hall, like putting a number on, like, we'll have 3 town halls. Next year, or something like that, and we'll have, how do we get the parents involved and because you're right, it's equity stakeholder, I mean, how do we get those people involved and get there, I mean, I like the town hall you did for the solar panels, I mean, something like that was informative, got the community involved. And I think that went a long way towards letting the community know that we care about your voice, and maybe it's, holding a certain number of those, or doing one every 3 months or something like that, so we have 3 of it. I don't know, something like that, but it's a certain metric that we can say, hey, we accomplished that, and we can also go back to the community at large too, and say, hey, we're planning on doing 3, or however you do it, yeah.
So maybe you could send us out the current, just shared on the drive. Because there is always one in place. And that one, I believe, was before the construction.
Yeah.
So all that, it'd be great to scratch stuff.
Right, oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right, we've had a robust discussion.
Yeah, I just want to say, thank you so much. That was a lot of thought.
For your input.
Yeah, and just really appreciate you putting some, your attention on the things in addition to your. Attention on everything.
Day-to-day.
I always appreciate the level of detail you go
Yeah.
into with.
Great.
It's not just a goal, it's, background, an article, that source, I mean, there's a lot put into that.
Exciting to accomplish these goals together.
Yeah, for sure. And it's important for us to know what you think, what your vision is, I mean, where you think we need to take things and what's important, so.
Right.
Alternative.
Right, and how we can support.
Yeah,
We do.
100%.
Thank you.
All right, if we don't have anything else on the table, I know you all have been enjoying our discussion.
I got one idea.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're welcome to share your thoughts.
Just, I don't know, it was just a thought that came in my head, Scott, how SoCal has every Friday assemblies.
Yeah.
Talking about wanting to get kids to show up to school and have better attendance. Like, how about if you had each class kind of have like, let's see if we can get everybody to come today, and you kind of keep a tally over the month. And then the class that has like the best attendance, or even a few classes, And you recognize it at the assembly and the kids cheer them on and go, yay, kind of like a competition,
I love it, let's do it.
Yeah,
you know? Because then you would get all the kids involved.
Those are the kind of
Yeah, and
ideas
they're-
that come from the field
That's-
versus
that's
top.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're here every couple of Wednesdays. Feel free.
I've been a parent, grandparent, I work at the school.
Yeah.
I've been on all the sides. So
Yeah,
That's what
Get
we
to
need.
see them, yeah. I remember there, our neighbor, this one little boy that lived near us, he went to SoCal. He had like, I couldn't believe it, perfect attendance, like the whole 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
I'm like, how do you do that?
That is an impressive.
Yeah.
Thank you for the idea. I love it. I'll work with Mr. Litter on it.
Okay.
all right. If we don't have any other thoughts from the in-person audience, do you mind just checking and seeing if we have any
I was
email or
thinking,
whoever's on email?
Nothing on email.
Okay, all right. Well, then, thank you. That was a great discussion. I
Absolutely. I
appreciate it.
appreciate the input.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we are on to some board policies, discussion regarding board policy 6173.4, education for American Indian students. Dr. Lance, Lance, maybe you can go.
You know what, I'm doing a trial of both.
I like having these.
Might take people down. So thank you, actually, as the board knows, that most of the board policies that we bring before you have really been vetted, language wise by, CSBA, and in, most cases, the legal formal is on the submission. So what I'm bringing to you today is actually a new board policy. And it's a discussion in first reading. But really the point of this, new board policy, is to take into consideration Assembly Bill 107 or 1703 2022 and 740 2022. And these are associated with the American Indian population who have been marginalized, and they haven't really had a presence in board policy, where we've had other marginalized populations in board policy. And so really what this attempts to do is to say, not only are we attending to your linguistic needs, your cultural needs, and those kinds of things, but we're also going to create systems for you to be successful in a pipeline to higher education. And so that is the reason I'm bringing this in board policy today, even though this is not the majority of our student population, it is always a portion of every school population. So not a large majority, but a silent minority of marginalized students in our state.
I think it's great. My grandfather was a Hopi Indian. So raised in a rabbi reservation out there, so. Close to heart, great idea.
Any questions about it?
Yeah, what took them so long?
Yeah.
That's an interesting question, and certainly there used to be, Title VI has been around for a long time. And there used to be a lot of ties that were associated with it and getting extra services in school, and then it kind of went away for a little while, and there was attention to other marginalized groups of students. And I think it really is time for us to be able to say, let's look at the data, and what we do know about the data right now is our American Indian students or Indigenous people are really not performing as well as they should, and mostly because, there just hasn't been the attention required. So that's why this policy mandates that we attend to it, and we will, and we do.
One of the things it talked about was instructional materials. Are we changing anything we do, or is it perhaps if you have a certain percentage of a Native American population?
Not at all.
It's not.
Actually, it's really interesting because and Superintendent and I were just having this discussion every day, the other day when we were talking about adopting new social studies materials. And there was a potential for us to pilot some social studies materials that were recently published. And one of the terms that was used was American Indians. And what we know to be true in this community specifically is that Indigenous peoples is the term that we use as respect.
And when you bring materials into a environment where terms that you're using or classifications that you're using could be potentially offensive or upsetting to the community that you serve, you have to pause. And so that's a good example of saying, like, we are taking a good close look at the things that we're introducing to students within the classroom to ensure that we are supporting their social, emotional, cultural, and linguistic, like, foundations, so that they can, and so that we all have a better representation of what, you know, the actual history of people, you know, look like. So that's like an example of where we're looking at curriculum. It's not just for this group of students, but it's with this group of students in mind.
Yeah, but so you haven't, it sounds like you didn't choose the book yet, but you're keeping this in mind as you're choosing the book, right?
And we do
Okay.
have a group of teachers who've been working with us,
Yeah.
who have a really fine sensibility on this issue. We have 4 specifically that we were working with at the end of the springtime and looking over the summer, you know, at some other options. What we did do, and I think I might have sent this to the board on a Friday update, but we did create a bridge social science, grade by grade standards-based lesson plan that's based in artifact centered instruction, which it allows us to not have language that would be negatively connotated. So, connotated? Noted? Yeah, yes.
So I think it's especially relevant for us since, you know, we're named after native language. Right. And a person who actually lived here.
I think it's the right time. I'm glad it's here.
You mentioned that indigenous people is more commonly preferred term locally. Do you think we should add a sentence to this policy, making note of that, or just honoring that?
Yeah, that's what I hadn't really considered that, no, I mean, that is. It would make it the board policy more unique to our board policy, so I can certainly. Make a note of that and add it in for next time if you can.
If that's something that you guys are comfortable with, and I mean, I would guess that probably wouldn't create any kind of legal issue with the language if it just says we recognize that in our community. You know, the term indigenous people is, yeah.
There are board policies.
That, you know,
I absolutely can add that, and I can think of, you know, maybe even just in that first sentence. Where it says, recognizes that American Indian students, and we can say, you know, also refer to in our district as indigenous people.
I think that would be a respectful thing to do if that's something. I'm
I think that
comfortable
sounds
with.
great.
Yeah, great. I
Yeah.
will make that.
When I read this, I kept saying, well, what's it replacing? And we didn't have them. This
No.
policy didn't exist. So.
Yeah,
So isn't there a local writer who wrote a book about the Coast-Noans?
we actually have quite a few local writers who write about a lot of the indigenous populations in California that live in this county.
Yeah, no, I mean about the people who lived here.
Yes,
They wrote just about that.
yes. And actually, I think that they might be, that person might be a professor at UCSD.
Yeah, didn't Sandy Leiden do a book too? Like, she might have. I wouldn't be surprised if we did.
I was gonna say, no, but
Yeah. Any other here? No. Okay, thank you.
Any questions from the audience? I know you guys are waiting for us to come in. Anything on? Okay, thank you for the discussion. With that, our audience cleared out a little bit, and I'm just noting that we've got folks here to present on one of our last action items. With the board's permission, I'd like to ask that we move our next item up, so that we take action item 10C to consider approving the change order for Climate Tech, and clear that next prior to 9C, since we do have some guests who probably traveled away and might have further to go.
They were just here for the board meeting.
Well, and you're welcome to say if you would like to speak to us about our governance handbook, et cetera, but is that,
Yeah, I'd like to second.
board
that.
okay with that?
Okay,
All right then.
Well, thank you, and thanks for sticking with us, and which page do you say that was?
81.
All right, and we're gonna move along once we scroll to page 81. There are action hats on, all right.
So we discussed a little bit earlier, it was alluded to about the, the need for solar energy and reducing our footprint in that way. So that's all tied into the comprehensive infrastructure project that's been ongoing in our district. Of course, we're well acquainted with the solar structures that have gone in. Parking lot in Santa Cruz Gardens, is at Main Street and New Brighton so far. And soon to be at SoCal Elementary is all part of a bigger project aimed at that infrastructure improvement. In any construction project, whether we like it or not, change orders are not atypical, right? It's hard to plan for every single contingency. And one thing that came to light is that the structure at Main Street, the drainage created some erosion that wasn't ideal for the field out there. And so we know that about Main Street, and we want to be proactive about that on the structure on the field out here at New Brighton. So part of this change order is putting in decking, it's called. Obviously, it's not my area of expertise, but decking that will create the right drainage system so that erosion that occurred at Main Street during the last set of storms doesn't occur again, doesn't happen at New Brighton. And then there are other items also baked into this change order: protection of the line set covers against vandalism. That would be at New Brighton. And then also at Main Street, and this is a big one because the HVAC system at Main Street is a real unique structure. If you ever, let's take a field trip one day, if you haven't looked at the big giant unit that kind of is a central unit for the HVAC system on Main Street, it's a monster. And it's not easy to integrate into the new modern controls, the Pelican system that we have. And so part of this is to get that all integrated so that it's easily monitored and easily managed, and we're not having the fan go off during the weekend. That's not good for our energy, and it's not good for our neighbors. And so those are the big items baked into this change order, this admittedly large change order. We have our great partners here from Climate Tech, Steve and Fabian. So thank you for being here tonight, gentlemen, to answer any questions from the board. And Steve, I gotta thank you for being here tonight. Steve is the one out in the field doing this. He's here early in the morning, and it pained me to have to ask him to come tonight, and he stepped up without any complaints. So thank you for being here tonight, gentlemen, to help answer our questions about this change order.
If it's okay to start out, thank you for the overview. I would love just a little more of
Yes.
a little more detail from you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you are. Decking, what is that? Decking gonna look like?
Y'all at the podium, back here.
Oh, really? Right.
Okay.
Two
Just sit
people.
up front rows.
Yep, that's right.
So it's a terrible name for that.
Decking.
Yeah.
It's-
You think you walk on that.
There's kind of not a real better way of describing it, like an underlayer maybe would be another word for it. So, and I appreciate the time with everyone this evening and you moving us up. You know, we understand there's a lot of other items on the agenda, so we appreciate that. But no, we don't have far to drive between our partnership with your district and your peers in the county. We pretty much live in Santa Cruz, so not a bad place to be. But yes, so a little bit more detail on that item specifically. So solar panels, they may look like they're a solid array. There are actually small gaps between each one of the panels that are up there. That's as they heat up, they expand, as they cool, they contract. You don't want to bump into each other. So there's a little bit of space between there. It's not watertight. So when it rains, unfortunately, water does get underneath it. So the idea here, and some of your peers in the county are doing the same thing with their solar arrays as well, is to put effectively a solid layer underneath to collect whatever rain is coming through those gaps in the panels, and then including a gutter system like you have on the roof of your house to take that water, instead of it just spilling off the front, to run it to the side. And then this actually, instead of just a downspout with all of that water hitting one spot underneath, this is going to actually tie into the drainage systems for the two fields, both at Main Street and here. That's gonna, well, if you could give more detail on it, Bobby, but effectively.
So in your field, you have 3 existing storm drains where they're that act as natural swales for the lawn area to be able to drain water. We are going to tie into those.
There's gonna be a central outflow. So from the gutter system, like you would see on your house, the piping comes back to one of the columns. Then we will dig underground and then we'll tie it in. Just like you see in the pre-made swales of the piping that goes underneath. And it will just drain directly into that, into your existing storm systems. We identified one under the main array that is here closest to the buildings. And then the far array also has one as well that we'll be tying into. Main Street, exact same scenario, except that the drain is at the bottom of the hill, so we just have to dig deeper to get there.
So you'll dig up the ground, make room for the pipes in the gutter system to go down, okay.
And install the actual piping to do it. For Main Street, there will be one long one that runs under the array and then ties into the one gutter that is in that area.
Do you know how long, I'm just curious, how far away the actual storm drain pipe is from where the gutter is gonna be?
I'm sorry, for which site?
Like Main Street and New Brighton, I guess.
Okay, so New Brighton, the far array that you have on the corner, we're talking 10-15 feet. Here, the New Brighton closer array, you're a little farther, you're more in the 20 to 25 foot range. And then Main Street, it's the entire run of the array, and then down to the far edge, you're talking closer to 150 to almost 200 feet.
Okay.
You got enough slope for that?
Yeah, we do.
Because you're up on the bank.
Yeah, and we'll actually dig, we'll start shallow and dig in to create the slope.
And how do you maintain it with debris and other things getting into there, into that? Is there some way to get somebody to come on clean, or does it get stuck, or is it?
So debris is not gonna be as big of a deal just because there's not a whole lot of other vegetation that is taller than the array that we put out there. And as far as that, the pipe itself contracts at the edge of the gutter system. And if it were to get clogged up like you would at your house, it's, you know, a broom and a ladder to do it. But since the array is so high compared to everything in the around, it's a minimal risk.
And is this just for the two sites, or are we also looking to do this at SoCal?
It's just for the two sites. So the array at SoCal and the gardens are parking lot arrays. So not as big a concern. There's no erosion of the parking lot underneath. There'll be cars underneath that get a little wetter than they would otherwise be in the rain.
Is the decking right underneath the solar panels, or is it a foot underneath, 2 feet, 3 feet? Would it affect anybody being underneath there, or what we can do underneath those structures?
No, because we have to custom design this, since we're doing this after the fact, it's actually gonna be set under what's called the purlin, which is the thick beam that you see sitting under the panel. So it'll go panel, beam, decking, and then the gutter system will attach to the edge of it.
And last thing I had in mind, why are we doing this now? Why wasn't this brought up when we first installed in the master plan? And was this an option given to us back then and we declined it? Or was this something that is just normal? Hey, we had no idea this was gonna happen, and now we gotta spend $800,000, 10%, over 10% of the original cost to now fix something that somebody should have caught years ago when we first started planning this.
Yeah, I would defer mostly to the staff on that one. I do know that your peers that are installing this under their arrays as the arrays are going in have had plans to have outdoor learning spaces under those shade structures from the day they were put in. So those are meant at other districts to be classroom spaces, outdoor learning spaces. Here, it's really just more of a shade is the benefit to the area. It's a good place for students that are outside running around playing to just have a break from the sun, as opposed to some other districts that are specifically, those are going to be learning spaces.
So you guys didn't bring it up to us, nobody here said, hey, what about erosion and rain fall off and stuff like that?
It really wouldn't have been a major concern then, no.
Okay, now it's $800,000.
It's
Just for clarification though, I mean, this is an $800,000 change order, but not all of that is for this, for the decking and the erosion, right? There's a bunch of things lumped into this change order.
There's a few things in there, yeah. The bulk of it is for this element. And I think the unique location and the tie-in that is taking place. Some other districts would be fine with just one downspout and not have any of the underground penetration and running lines to drainage. Here, just the way that the fields are used and going to be used in the future here at this site specifically, it makes sense to do that extra work now.
And that was my next question, is how this is gonna affect if we do, in the future, we build a stadium or a field or whatever we do on those fields.
is that gonna then need to be changed after that, or are we have it mapped out, so we'll know where these pipes are and how, you know?
Oh, yeah, you'll have drawings and everything on. these
Yeah,
pipes.
we
That's-
So I just wanna make
Mhm.
sure, like, you know, in 5 years down the line, or 2 years down the line, when we do something with these fields, you know, it's not, we're not gonna have another problem then, and, oh, hey, we didn't anticipate you might need this or that, you know?
Yeah, I would say other districts that are doing the same solution right now and that are having drainage. They're looking at putting, whether it's concrete pads or DG or something underneath the arrays, so they're not having any issues disturbing whatever's going in from a drainage standpoint there.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So whatever surface becomes in the future underneath those arrays, you're gonna be fine.
So, I'm gonna ask the question, the run that's gonna take the water off of, you know, the panels and run underground.
Mhm.
From what I read here, it sounds like that's gonna be corrugated piping. Is that true?
It's
Corrugated piping?
You know,
The-
that stuff, that black stuff that has this, you know, round and it's corrugated. Rather than.
so I guess the concern would be like rust over time or any degradation of the metal.
They're
or-
plastic usually.
The sheeting here is gonna be metal.
No, I'm not,
Okay,
I'm talking about
okay.
pipe in the ground,
The underground run,
right?
that,
No, the underground run is gonna be a polymer, just like what we do. for
Schedule
anything
40,
else.
no ripples, smooth inside.
Yeah,
Okay, then what
Yeah.
is this corrugated
Corrugated.
liner panel system?
that refers to what we're calling the decking.
Oh, okay.
Is corrugated.
okay, yeah.
So it has hips and valleys so the water doesn't run off a flat sheet, it runs into little gullies, that's what we're referring to.
So the underground runs are gonna be solid PVC, no corrugation. So,
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah.
Easier to clean.
And what are the other elements? And I'm sorry, I don't wanna, feel free, you know, tell me, shut up. What are the?
Oh,
other-
no.
So, and
so-
can you tell me about the graffiti thing?
So it's not an anti-graffiti, it's more of a concern from vandalism. Staff had pointed out that there are instances of individuals getting on the roofs, especially at this site. So with the line sets for the air conditioning, so from the units in the classroom out to the unit that's actually helping to produce the cool refrigerant, there's lines that run over the roofs of the building here. So typically those are just pipes that are sitting on top of the building, no concerns, no questions, not a problem. Knowing that there have been issues in the past with individuals on the roof here and causing problems with the equipment on the roof. This is more of a proactive, let's get ahead of them having any opportunity to damage those lines and putting additional, it's gonna be effectively custom fabbed steel or aluminum,
It's steel, yeah, it'll look,
Encasing the wiring or something?
just to cover those pipes and protect them from anybody messing with them.
What are the pipes made of?
the line sets that run the HVAC are made out of copper. These would be made out of steel and they're going to look visually very similar to what we have on the exterior of the building. It's just that you're gonna be able to step on them and not bend up the line sets.
And it can't be concrete blocks.
I wouldn't recommend. that on the roof, but
Not on a roof
sure.
of a classroom, yeah.
The vandals covered on the roof or the base.
The roof of the building here.
For HVAC.
So the worry is that someone will climb to the top of the building.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have at this building. So damaging anything that's up there. The arrays are 20 feet clear of the building, so unless you've got,
Is that a concern that someone vandalized the base?
getting actually up on the array panels. No, the only real concerns that we've ever really had with arrays is either individuals throwing things at them, students, you know, kickballs and baseballs and things going up there at them, which A, we really haven't had too many issues with districts, and B, where we have, there's a backstock of panels and some warranty protections as well for that.
So maybe you could explain, I mean, Robert got into it a little bit,
Mhm.
but a long time ago, when we started this project, it seems like if you're putting arrays into dirt, that erosion, dripping is, I mean, this is your field. You would know that that kind of thing happens. There's been a lot of erosion in Main Street.
Mhm.
I mean, the rain panels are new, but we're yet to see that erosion. But that seems like a really big thing that we should have known about ahead of time. Like, why are we dealing with this now?
I think, and staff, correct me if I'm wrong here. Here especially with the unknown future of exactly what the field will look like. And if you recall, there was an initial change because the arrays have moved from where they were initially designed to be. So as the usage of this area and the exact layouts of what will be where, when, putting anything besides the array up was not really in play at this site specifically. For Main Street, it's kind of it's the nature of the beast. The water falls differently off different arrays in different places and erodes different surfaces differently. It's your peers in the county may get more water on an array and have less erosion. It's completely dependent on the surface that it's falling on.
And you talked about other options. You talked about people use DG, people do other things. Are there cheaper options to deal with dripping and erosion?
There's different treatments that can be put on the surface underneath and the water could still fall underneath it, no problem. Like I said, some of the peers in the county that have from the beginning had different intentions for what was happening underneath the arrays. Planned ahead for, we're going to be putting concrete pads underneath here. So it's not so much of a concern, or we're going to be putting tables and lunch areas and whatever under here, or we're putting them in, existing asphalt patches that the surface already existed. We're just penetrating it to put a shade structure on top of it. It's kind of a unique situation for every district in the county.
Whether the concrete pads, no matter what they do, they still have to worry about runoff.
Erosion over time. That's a concern for everyone. Yep. So
I, having been here when that happened, if I would have anticipated that we would get 2 atmospheric rivers within 3 weeks, that we would have spent $700,000 back then. But I don't think, I know I didn't consider that we would get, many inches of rain in such a short amount of time. But now, going forward, this is what we're going to be looking at. We're going to have to somehow mitigate and MacGyver our facilities to match whatever's going to come. And so, are we going to be seeing 100-degree weather for 2 or 3 weeks at a time? Does that mean we should have spent more on air conditioning of the gardens? I don't know. So it's crystal balls on it.
Well, you bring up a good point. I mean, in your expertise, I imagine this isn't the first one you've done, out of the multitude of these projects, is there anything else that we should expect for the future? Like instead of us being reactive, how can we be proactive? As Phil brought up, like what in the next 10, 20, 50 years or whatever, what in your experience could we come up with that we might be able to put into place now or to do some,
So can I add that?
Yeah.
So should we be spending the money to get a generator for every school? Should we be spending the money to get drinking water stockpiled at every school? Because the water district pumps will go out if the electricity's out. I mean,
Talking about solar.
I know, but you're saying, why didn't we anticipate it? So here's the opportunity to anticipate things that could happen.
Well, I heard his answer. He said different sites have different weather patterns.
Right. No, but why we did. Yeah, and that's why we did.
There certainly is, I mean, I know nobody wants to use the B word blame, but there certainly is blame here to be on me. Different questions could have been asked, right, and different clarifications about what would happen under the solar structures. And those could have been explored more. So there is blame to accept here at this table in this seat. I want to say that because as good of partners as you have to ask the right questions and you have to have clear intentions, right? And so I'll be honest, I did not anticipate, what occurred at Main Street last year. I wish I could go back in time and do that. But we have the challenge in front of us that we have, right? And so, sometimes, and I know I'm not hearing from the board that we're looking for blame, but sometimes clarity is in that it doesn't exist on one side. We could have asked better questions, we could have given better clarification.
But there's also the point that you don't know the questions to ask. You're a superintendent of schools, you're not a professional architect.
Well, and I'm not trying to shift it one way or the other, I'm just saying it's a partnership, that's all I'm saying, right? And I don't think it was from any side being lackadaisical. I think it was something, if we could go back in time and address, we probably would. But we're here, both sides have to accept the fact that this is where we're at, and I'm pleased that at least there's a way to address it.
I agree.
I know it's a lot of money.
That's just why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, no.
You know, what should we expect? What's the next thing? You know, now it's gutters and rain runoff and the things on the buildings. Is there anything else that you guys can think of in your expertise that has happened at other sites? You know, and beyond, you know, the water district pumps and generators going out, things like that. But I mean, things that might not be that much of a fix in terms of, you know, capital outlay from the school district, you know, that we can put into place now, or at least look at that to save ourselves $800 or $1 million, you know, in a couple of years or something like that. Is there anything you guys can, you know?
Yeah. I think a lot of that, you know, we take a look at the very beginning of the project as well, whether it's, you know, covers for the HVAC equipment that's going to be on the ground. So there's no vandalism to those units. We don't see a lot of districts where students are not expected to, but have proven to be on the roofs of buildings very often. So there are things like that, you know, we take a look at here, the solar arrays that are up there right now. You know, the panels that we put in have the best warranty in the business, to protect the district as long as possible on that investment. You know, we do ask a lot of questions and kind of what's the use for this area over time. You know, again, some of the peer districts have said, well, this is a classroom space, this is an outdoor space, that we're going to have students out there in the rain, we're going to have rainwater, you know, always in this area. What can we do? To Phil's point, we got a lot more water in this area of the state last winter than we have in a long time. So
My point is, I just don't know the questions to ask.
Right.
I don't know to say, hey, what if this is gonna happen, you know?
And to Robert's point, for some of the outdoor spaces that we have built before, it's actually reduced the amount of erosion from having the solar panels out there. So it's not as straightforward, you know, of course, you know, we're looking at it now like, well, maybe we should have caught this, but in a lot of the areas that we have done this, we've actually greatly reduced the amount of erosion. They don't have to tarp their dirt because the solar array's there.
And so just taking a step back, we're dealing with this erosion because it's a safety hazard or a cosmetic thing.
Cosmetic.
Okay, so we could not do it and just let it go.
And Main Street is a mess.
Well, but again, so it's a cosmetic thing, it's not a.
I mean, I definitely respect Steve's opinion, but it leaks into the playground.
Okay.
We're losing the field.
But just so we know, as a board, we're making this decision based on that.
Well, I think it's more than cosmetic too. I mean, I think it affects the fields and the kids go out there. It could be a safety issue. It could be, they can't use the playground today. You know, it could be things like that where it would affect the students. So I mean, I see your point too, but I think it's gonna be more than cosmetic no matter what.
Because when we're thinking about this in the past, that wasn't, the cosmetic thing wasn't what we were thinking of for sure.
Well, I'm sorry, I was gonna say, it seems like we heard last spring, you know, about from middle school PD about the use of the field and how important every inch of the space is. So we want to make sure we're not doing anything that is potentially taking away from that space. So if the correct solution is deal with the water that we know is coming again this winter, and when we deal with the water in the best most appropriate way to preserve our fields. And I'm assuming this is the thing that's keeping our options open for field enhancements and improvements. And we want to make sure we're doing whatever we can for master planning. So
Right.
That's my perspective. But it could totally be based on incorrect.
And we get back to goal 2.
I mean, tagging on to that, I mean, you guys heard earlier in the agenda that we're working on our master plan. So, my worry is that if we're putting in pipes, if we're spending this money, that perhaps we're limiting a future option that we might have. Doesn't it make sense to pause this, decide what our master plan is, and then come back to dealing with the erosion, the decking, possible vandalism?
Then we run the risk. Well, you'll have all the damage during.
Yeah,
I would, but what if we box ourselves in and then we're throwing more money to try to address the master field that we want, that we can't have because we dug these pipes way under to get to the drain? Doesn't that box us in?
you know, moving a pipe isn't very hard. You just dig another ditch and then put another pipe in. You don't even dig out the old one.
Yeah, I think they're separate. I understand what you're
Yep.
saying, but I think addressing this issue and making sure that we have the right baseline for which to have our drain field, wherever that goes, one, fixing this problem doesn't prevent whatever that is, whatever we design. It's only gonna give us a better starting point, and we'll know more about what's underground out there than we ever did. I mean, there's a lot of, between Capitol Elementary and the evolution, I think every time we do a project, we find more and more what's underground. We're gonna have a better understanding of the place that we're starting for those fields than we do right now. So I would just say that one doesn't prevent the other. In fact, fixing this problem is gonna give us a better running start to get done what we want on the fields.
I guess I just can't wrap my brain around that. If we're laying the pipe, if we're hanging the thing, it seems like we're deciding what the space is going to be like versus what the master plan is that we want. Am I wrong in understanding this piping that to get to the drain? Maybe you could explain that more.
So I'm not quite clear on what the concern is, just because the depth of that piping, just by the nature of where storm water drains are put, is actually significantly deeper than what is already existing out there. Particularly here at New Brighton, Main Street is definitely a much cleaner slate. But the depth of that piping actually, not to say it won't happen, but compared to the other piping and its depth that we already see at these other schools, significantly deeper and much less likely to impact future plans as opposed to what's already existing.
Approximately how deep is this one?
You're going to start your penetration at ground level, obviously, when you get to the pier. Main Street, from where we start down to where we actually connect to the storm drain, your drop is gonna be somewhere in the 20-ish foot range. But your actual connection, because we're dropping down that hill, is probably gonna be another, let's call it 3-4 feet below ground level. Here, it'll be a little shallower just because of where the location of the drains are. So you're talking starting at ground level and then connecting down, let's call it 5-6 feet.
And the thing is, obviously, the slope,
Correct.
you know, going down to the storm drain. So, and if it's, you said before, it's like 20 feet or something like that, so it's 20 feet, you know, going down. I mean, it's obviously gonna be much more shallow nearer.
Where the outfall is, correct, and where it connects in.
Right?
And you said that it most likely is not gonna be an issue, but what's a potential issue that is something, what were you thinking?
Nothing that's not already here from any of the existing piping. I mean, the piers for the solar array go down 15 feet by plans, but the depth of is actually 16.5 feet. We did that without any problem, except for, you know, one irrigation line that we had to fix and then some heads, but that's just the nature of infrastructure. There's piping underground.
Is it a 6-inch line?
That gutter? No, it's gonna be 8 inches.
It's underground.
Yeah, that'll be 8 inches as well.
How many? 4?
8 inches. as
8
well.
inches, okay.
Yeah.
How do you find?
So, I mean, and I don't expect you to know this, but I think one of the concerns, and I share it with Callie too, because we talk a lot about a field and whether if we do turf, you know, and then it has to have its own irrigation systems in it, right? And I think the problem is we don't know questions to ask. That's why you guys are looking like, hey, well, I don't think that's gonna affect it. Well, we don't know the right questions to ask it. I've never put a turf field in anywhere. I don't know the plumbing in a turf field. I don't know the plumbing that's involved with this gutter system I'm talking about. What we're trying to do is trying to use our crystal ball and figure out if this is gonna affect anything that we do in the future, you know, in the next year to 5 years, whatever it might be, and then try to foresee anything that's gonna make that a hiccup and, you know, overcome it now than being reactive then and having it cost us $1 million then,
Right.
you know, and that's money that teachers and kids don't get access to.
But what I do know is that whatever we do, we gotta fix this problem, right? It doesn't matter what kind of field we put in, we're gonna have to fix this problem. If we don't fix it now, it's gonna get worse. It's gonna be harder and more expensive to fix.
I can understand that.
And I don't see where an 8-inch drain pipe is going to impact any future projects very much. I mean, the replacement or abandonment or whatever you do to that, it's gonna be like a rounding number on the whatever.
Here's the thing, Phil, I agree with you, but I don't know. You know, that's why I'm asking the question. I agree with you. It's I would assume that it wouldn't make any difference. But since I don't know, I'm asking the professional.
And I think a lot of that came back to our initial questions too, where what we can best plan for what's happening in the field. But that's also not known. So really our goal with the solar that's been put in is to make as little an impact on that space as possible. And once those decisions are made, we can work with drainage or whatever to integrate with that solution, but that solution is not fixed. So let's, to your point, Calista, is let's make as little an impact on that space as possible and leave that as open for whatever possibilities could be out there. And get the solar, let's get the economic benefits, let's get it offsetting the energy bills here at this district, let's get towards those greenhouse gas goals as quickly as possible, but do it in a way that least impacts the space.
And what about tweaks afterwards? So if you guys do this project, it's $792,000 and we get the decking put in and everything, and then the first big rain comes up, it's like, oh gosh, that corner isn't effective. It's running off of that corner, and that's now gonna be the problem. It angles off differently than we originally thought, and it's going over here. Would you guys then come back and for free fix it and make sure that whatever you guys are doing now does what it's supposed to?
I wouldn't say for free. I would say for Main Street, that's probably not gonna happen because we've seen what a much larger than average rainfall does there and exactly what the impact is and exactly where it's falling. So our solution for sure will fix that. Here, the slopes are relatively understood of the arrays that are up. And I would say it's very little different than the gutters on your home, right? They catch everything falling down. It's sloped to run down towards the front. The decking catches anything that doesn't fall down towards the front. And then it gets caught right there. So I would find it very difficult that we're gonna have water ending up in places besides the gutters coming off of there. But
What about an idea like capturing the rainwater and using it aside?
it could potentially be an option. Yep, we could evaluate that and
I guess that's my concern right now at this moment is that because we haven't dreamed up what we want, we're trying to fix a problem that came from kind of making some choices. I mean, what if that was in our plan that we want, captured rainwater, but we paid this money to lay the pipe to get to the drain out to the bay.
So the question is, the DSA approval good for a while?
that,
Yeah, I'm not clear on the
So
question.
DSA approves plans, is there like 60 days and then the approval goes away or what?
Per new DSA guidelines, if nothing is done with the plans within 6 months of, I believe, I don't know if it's original submission or first round comments, you have to at least file for an extension letter, and that has to be approved for, I forget what the language is, I think it's a good cause in order to continue the project. We actually just.
So we could put it out till next summer.
You're saying approve it now?
No, DSA did approve it, but we don't want to lose that approval. So we can go through the extension process and then if we want, we could do it in the summer.
I think we have a clarification on that.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm sorry. So the original solar array is DSA
No,
approved.
this change order.
This decking is not DSA approved.
Okay.
There'd be a full calc package and DSA. It's called a CCD, a contract change, that would have to be done and approved. And that's included in this pricing as well.
Okay, so we could delay till next summer.
absolutely.
I wouldn't
That sounds
recommend
risky.
that. Wouldn't be a problem, of course, this winter, but it's cosmetic.
Well, we decided to put it in right now, so.
But, yeah, I guess I don't understand. Putting something off that long. Just to get more options on rainwater, or I'm not feeling directly in. On the whole thing. There was all those parents that were with the New Brighton site, the PE department, so to add more money. When over 200 people were upset about one of our arrays. The erosion in Main Street, I've heard a lot about that. So to put more money into this problem, to me, makes me very nervous. I want us to see what our plan is before we invest more money into.
Which would mean that we should freeze all of our projects.
I'm concerned about losing time, and I'm concerned about what it would mean for our PE program and having damage to the field in New Brighton, because I walked in the market Main Street too and saw what happened there. I'm concerned about if it is a really wet winter, then there's a problem with losing access to that portion of the field for a significant amount of time. So I understand the need to get more information, but I feel like we're, that's saying kind of in a broad way, let's just postpone it for many, many months. To me, that sounds like it's, not necessarily.
What happened in Main Street too.
Yeah.
Continued erosion and everything, and then what kind of a problem are we gonna run up against, because I'm not convinced it's just cosmetic, I mean, it seems like there could be other effects that the erosion and what do you do with the dirt if it moves from one place to another, and you have to, I don't know.
And I want to address the idea that the drain pipe will be an impediment to anything we do in the future. Right? I mean, it's of no consequence that it's there. If we're going to do something out there, it's going to be much bigger than.
And
it costs more.
Moving a pipe, or if it comes to that, would be negligible.
Right, and you wouldn't even move it, like I said, you just put a new one in and just cut off the ends on the old one. Abandoned in place, it's. I understand seeing everything beforehand, but if we put a freeze on this project, we should put a freeze on all of our projects, because. What if could be applied to every one of these.
Let me ask another question, Scott. The $800,000 that this is gonna run us, I mean. Do we have it? Capital facilities, yes. And it's budgeted in and it's planned and we're okay, we're in okay shape if we do this.
Yes, I mean, of course. In a perfect world, you would not want change order to come along, but like I said, this is not an atypical part of the process.
Against the construction project.
Yeah, right.
It happened, but this is a big.
We can absorb the cost, yes.
But this is facilities money, like this could be towards, fields.
So this will be, it could be,
This is that money.
it's part of the same pot, yes.
And then,
Oh, that's an interesting consideration.
and then if we put this off, there'll be another change order, because I'm gonna guess 5-10% increase in everything by summer.
For steel, it's.
Yeah,
That's
so just
very
about
conservative.
slightly.
Yeah.
Do you have a breakdown? Because, this isn't just gutters and decking, right? It's the HVAC, graffiti, and then the downspout and the decking. We have a breakdown of what's,
We could get you that, yeah.
I think it
What's the-
wasn't that in the
it's
email?
the totals. Do you know offhand how much the decking around, like how much of this?
It's, I want to say 80%, 85% probably of the total number is the decking. It's the bulk of it.
That's the whole.
That's everything. That's
From drawing up the plan, dealing with DSA approval.
materials, installation, PM, yep, all of it.
So
In your opinion, if we did not do the decking at New Brighton, what would happen to the fields? Oh.
Yeah.
So, sorry, Phil, when you did say, that it was cosmetic, I misspoke. It started out as cosmetic, but then as the rains got worse,
we did see a lot of erosion. So this is what caused me to train this whole thing up. This is what happened to the field. This wasn't even after the winter, this was probably about halfway through our winter, so it did get worse than that. So I strongly put forward, obviously, having to deal with that every winter is gonna take time and money from my crew. So.
And I apologize, who are you?
Steve, MTO, supervisor. Okay, yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's, yeah, I'm just, I, you know. put
I
it
just
in
was saying
perspective.
everybody knows Steve, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm, getting used to everybody, the whole thing, and. I'll just talk out loud, no, I mean, you brought up the best point of this whole thing is. How much money do we have set aside, or how much money will we have when we do want to put a field, which is what everybody in this community wants, and is taking $800,000 away from that. And I understand the importance of this project. I mean, you guys have convinced me, and I feel strongly about it. However, I don't want to do that if that's going to mean that we're going to have to push back our plans for a field another year or 2 years because we don't have $800,000.
No, one doesn't stop the other, and we're gonna have to fix this problem no matter what we do with fields.
One
And I
does
would
not
also
stop it.
just say fields is not just like, I mean, we can make a little off topic, so okay, if I address fields in general. So that's gonna have to be multifaceted. After we get community input, we'll probably be working with our partners like Little League and soccer and City of Capitola. And there could be fundraising, so it's not just like a black and white, we have this much to do with fields, like. That's gonna have to be an ongoing project, but using this money to fix this problem is not gonna prevent us from doing the work on the fields. And in fact, I would say if we don't do it, we'll probably end up spending more to fix the problem. In fact, I know we'll end up.
I would agree with
that. So
$800,000.
steel's not gonna get cheaper.
What are you saying to address in the future?
Workers out there are getting raises, and so the labor is gonna shoot way up,
Where are we in the master plan in terms of putting the field in there? How many?
I'm worried yeah,
That's
now
why
I feel like, now I'm like, oh, we're really, I mean, we try to stick a little more specifically to this item.
I feel like connected.
Can I ask Steve, how do your crews handle it when there's mud like that?
I mean, obviously, you kind of gotta wait till you can get in there to work on it, and then from
Sand
there, yep, you put down seed and then you just throw in some topsoil and water it. But I mean, if it did that to Main Street, it's gonna do that here. And my crew already is stretched thin, obviously, the shape of our fields. And we're really trying hard. I just don't want to take more time away from them to do that. The solar array panels aren't going anywhere, but the water issue is gonna stay, or, likewise get worse, so. I think it's important that we move forward with this project.
if we dump like a few truckloads of 4+ out there, would that
Somewhat.
rocks? 4-inch plus rock, would that stay that hill?
The water's still gonna be there, and the water is higher than the drain down below.
Right.
And it's gonna pull up. It needs to drain off. And go. When you were talking about catching water, we can install those big barrels that you see at, the home improvement stores. Those could be something that is added on if you guys really wanted, if you're talking about trying to save water. That is something that could be done after.
A lot of times they're put underground. I mean, that's another question.
Sure, but that,
And not
again,
take up the playground.
it costs money.
Yeah. And then you have to distribute the water somehow, so you gotta build all that piping system.
Save on water.
I know.
And just say, I really appreciate you guys bearing with us and answering questions, being patient.
It's an important decision, and we know it's like we've been talking about that field since our first conversations with the district. So really, it's
Yeah.
big for the community here. We understand that.
I appreciate that. Everything we do is with a filter of what's best for the kids and, moving down the road, so.
Also, whereas far, we don't have that crystal ball, right? Like, I'm looking at it from like sort of that homeowner perspective of, gosh, I'm worried if we don't replace piping underneath the toilet, we just put in a new toilet on top, like, oh no, what's gonna happen later, you know? right?
Copper.
Yeah, exactly, there's concerns that if we don't do it, what's gonna happen in 1 to 5 to 10 years.
Oh,
But certainly I see the flip side too, of is there a missed opportunity?
I think, of course, you have to have the answer for why they didn't do something.
And is there other options that people deal with when they don't initially put in the decking, but we did not?
A lot of it is just treatment of the surface underneath. And putting either it's rock or DG or a concrete pad or something underneath it. That's not as impacted by water.
Even if you put a concrete pad, the water's still gonna go somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still gonna be.
It'll drain off of that and it'll hit the, the grass or turf area that's right next to it.
How would DG absorb it differently than just turf? I mean, not turf, but field, earth. You think the DG absorbs it better?
DG has a higher compaction rate and larger particles, so it's just, it's more resistant, I think is a good word for it.
Which rolled down into playground then. Again, this climate change stuff, it's mitigation and it's, how do we accommodate it? And the whole idea is make sure our schools never close, they stay open. We gotta armor ourselves against all of this.
We won't close it if there's a mud pit out there.
Right. And that's our experience so far.
But we really want school to have that big.
No, we don't, but we want the real plan. I mean, everybody wants this field that we keep talking about, so,
At Main Street?
well, at all the sites.
Okay, so. You want to wait until we have the plan for the field before we do this?
I think it would be prudent. I think we kind of jumped into the solar panels. We didn't exactly. We had, people wanted us to pause before we had a plan. We did not pause. We put them in. Now we're dealing with a ramification of, something that we didn't foresee, and it's a lot of money. So I wouldn't mind waiting.
And we would have had to spend this money before. So. It's not the money, amount of the money, it's the timing, I think, is what you're concerned about.
Well, and if we wait a year, it's gonna be more.
Well, it's gonna be
$1 million project now. Right?
And that's, I guess, easy to explain.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's hard to synthesize it all. I think we were all taken by surprise, at the cost. I think we recognize that there's a problem, especially with I'm sure we've all seen it in the street. We want to prevent that from happening. It certainly is an unintended consequence of the placement, the slope, with the weather, whatever it's gonna be. But I mean, it is a problem and it's here, and for lack of a better word, it's like a huge bummer, disappointment, right? It is,
And the worst thing is it never rains here. Like it's 72 degrees every day, 365 here, it's like. It never rains. We live 7, and like, just so happens in the last, yeah.
And so we, listened to what the parents said, and months and months ago, we decided that we were gonna do something to fix it, I suppose we could tell them no. And that's just the way it is.
Well, we wouldn't tell them no.
Well, yeah,
I see your point, Phil.
they're saying no.
Yeah, well, no, we're saying, wait. But I see your point.
Yeah, because what could happen after wait is that it won't happen because something else is gonna go in there in 5 years, and so we're not gonna do that.
Does anyone have any other questions? I know we have a lot of thoughts, but any other questions for our experts here with us.
Well, I will just say that what is, we have to be guided by standard of care and the prudent and thing. We know there's a problem. And there's a solution here, and a prudent person would do that. If we don't, then I guess we should have a pretty good reason for that. So it's a whole legal thing, right?
Yeah, I mean. I'm not happy about the cost at all, obviously, but I'm more concerned about the loss of use of the space that are in the teachers emphasized so much last year that it's important to new people for their program. So I don't want us to, we have put solar panels on our roof, that's done, we're done. So I think we have an obligation now to make the space as usable for our students as possible. And so if what you're telling us is we need to be doing the decking and the drainage to preserve that space and prevent future problems, and I think I'm also hearing you say that what we're doing here should not impact our ability to make upgrades and improvements to our fields, right? And I heard you say that this, yes, we have a lot of money for facilities and when we spend money on something, it's money that's not available for other things, but we have potential partners in long-range plans that field use, and this is one thing does not negate the other.
Prevent us from moving forward with improving the field.
Would it postpone it?
Yeah, would it postpone it?
And I can't answer it exactly because we still have a lot of community work to decide what we're gonna do with our fields. But no, it won't postpone that process. And I think it's important to say too, because I want to acknowledge, that we did have a lot of community outcry here about the installation of the solar panels, it was mentioned earlier. And I know we didn't please everybody with our response, but we were responsive, and we were transparent. And I don't think that process, I think it's important to keep them separate. The concerns were expressed by some to not want the solar panels there at all. And because it was going to interfere with field space and everything, that concern is not the concern of this change order. So just
You bring up a good
two
point.
different things.
Yeah, that's a good point. Not everybody's happy with whatever the final plan is. And I'm not sure that our job is to please everyone. We have to. So the taxpayers give us money, we have to spend it in a way that we take care of our property. Imagine having your house, you're responsible for taking care of your property. So
Last thing for you guys, sometimes when I'm working with people, I'll give them 3 different proposals. One's the Cadillac, one's the Pinto. Is this the Cadillac? Is this the mid-level? Is this the bottom? Is there any way that we could do to get the same results that will last just as long, but use a different material? Or I don't know, is there any way to save any money off of the 800,000? And that's the thing, and Amanda hit it on the head. It's a huge sticker shock. I mean, is there anything that we can do to, save some money without risking kids or impugning the quality of the job?
As far as materials go, that I would definitely advise against, just specifically because where you guys live next to the ocean and because of the volume of water. Other options were proposed specifically for Main Street when this was originally brought up as an issue and we pitched different solutions. The way that we came up with this scope when we originally had the discussion was because it serves your best long-term views for those areas. There's always a cheaper way to do it, but the end result that you're going to see is probably not going to be as effective as what's being proposed here. And back to your original point, I would say this is probably more the higher end option. I don't know that you want to know what the low end options are in this particular.
Grab a shovel.
It costs us more in the long run.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Anyone else here in the audience? No one has been tracking all of this on YouTube. Okay.
Nothing on email. You think that with this whole big thing,
Yeah.
we have 200 people asking all the questions.
That's why we're asking them.
Yeah.
It's what you just said, I'm sorry, just a minute to process that. So when Robert was talking about the different levels of pricing, is it materials that change? Is it plan? Is it just in what category are those changes?
It's
that
the
not-
solution and the approach to the solution altogether. It's not a material selection. You could pick different materials, you would be replacing them pretty quickly. With just the nature of the marine environment here.
What is another solution to the problem?
It would be like a coating underneath. It would be the decking without tying into your drainage, so you would just have erosion in one spot where the downspout comes down. Those are a couple of different options, but
And are we still talking hundreds of thousands of dollars for options like that?
yeah, I think Phil
Yeah.
mentioned it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the easier options are just throw, some rock down, which is a couple bags of rock in Home Depot, but it's not a super effective solution, but it'll help with the erosion. But doesn't really fix the problem.
No, of course. Okay. I know it's a lot to think about, and we all had questions, prior to the meeting, and thank you for answering those as well. But we've got an action item for us, and we vote already. Do I have a motion to approve the change order for the modernization?
So I motion, will this be done soon?
That's dependent on DSA. They're the long pole in the tent right now. Everything else can be done pretty quickly.
And Steve, you're behind us.
100%.
You think this is the way to go?
So I move that we approve.
Second,
That's it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You guys have a good night.
Thanks a lot to have you there.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, it does.
Thank you. All right, I have an idea if you want to entertain me, scrolling back up in our agenda, our next item is the discussion on the Board of Trustees governance handbook. Noting the time and the fact that we're missing one of our board members, I would ask us to consider tabling it and bringing back to the meeting. I discussed it earlier and with the full board.
I'll make the
All right, okay. Okay, and I think we were talking about this last time, I think we don't have to vote on
We
pulling it with us. Do we go?
table.
We're just gonna table it, we're okay with tabling it, right? Okay, it's, we always have a really good thorough conversation about our governance handbook, and I wanna do it with fresh eyes and copy. Okay, but we have some more important things to do here. So next up, which I think is page 77, consider the approval of the CSEA joint collective bargaining agreement proposal.
So we had a public hearing on this earlier, it's partner action item, so that we can move forward with negotiations.
We have the same materials here that we have for the hearing item. Any questions? Process going. No one's here in person for any comments. No emails. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the CSEA? Collective bargaining agreement?
That mic's really low, so I'm just gonna move this up.
Oh, sorry about that. I'd like to make the motion to approve the CSEA sunshine agreement. Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay. Thank you. Next up is 10B, consider approval of the proposed district representatives to our SELPA Community Advisory Council.
The Community Advisory Council is an important part of our county SELPA, which we're a part of, the North Santa Cruz County SELPA. And getting input from parents is crucial components of that plan, of the local area plan. Oftentimes, these seats across the counties go unfilled because people are really busy. And so I just want to say how much I appreciate Laura Arantes and Aisha Statula for stepping up to the plate to be considered to be a part of the CAC. And they will be if the board approves this item.
Questions from the board?
These are parents? at our
These are
school?
parents in our district.
What,
yes.
what schools are they?
Oh, gosh, I don't have that off the top of my head. I know, the Statulas have gone to Main Street. I think they have one at New Brighton now, but, yes, I don't know the other one. I should have known that. I apologize.
It's okay, great. CJ Statula was student who came and he did the history competition.
That's right.
And he like wowed us with his.
And then his brother did the science. Yeah, his small, yeah, the convention. Convention.
Yep.
Good memory.
No, that's awesome that we continue to have volunteers for these, because I can remember in previous years where we didn't always have our
Yes.
filled so quickly. So
Absolutely.
we're all very excited and appreciative. Any other questions or comments?
Aisha was did this before. So this is her second term.
Yes,
How'd she do the first time?
she rocked.
Seriously?
Yeah, yes, part of everything.
Okay, great. I don't know, I mean,
You show up and participate and that's rocking it. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's really all about participation.
sounds good.
No in-person comments. Yeah, I bet we don't have any emails, but it's worth the check.
No.
Okay, all right. Do I have a motion to approve our proposed representatives to the SELPA CAC?
Sure, I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Great. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, congratulations and thank you. Very, very nice. All right, and we can scroll on down to our LCAP update. It's not a bite, it's a meal.
It's a meal. So yes, thank you. And I appreciate the board's indulgence in the way that we had to present the information. The way that we download our plan is from DTS and we can't highlight or italicize or do anything with it. But to help you, I've made a couple copies, not one for each of you, but one for each of you to share. And what I've done is I've actually gone through on the front, there's a post-it. On the front, there was a post-it note.
I can get it later.
Okay.
And you have them all.
Yes,
anyway.
right.
On the front, there's a post-it note and the DP refers to the docket page. 88, and then the adjacent number is the page number in the plan. So really, there's only 6 items that the county office requested that we take a look at and update. And so we can go to each of those just really quickly in order so that the board can see where the County Office of Education has suggested that we make some updates. And the first one is on docket page 88, which is page 5. In the handouts that I gave you, it's page 5 of the plan. And there is some highlighting on that page, and what that page highlights.
2,
Oh.
4.
I just.
Oh, they're summer bills.
Oh, well, we can
8.
share. We can share.
Oh, these aren't.
Yeah.
Order ready. 8, 16 of 112. 6.
Maybe go to page 88 on the docket.
If you go to page 88 on the docket, I'll walk you through them.
Yeah, we're there on the docket. I'm just looking at the handouts. My handout goes from page 8 to 12 to 16.
Misprinted, so just, yeah.
I apologize for that. I don't.
We did have a little issue with the copy machine and Robin did come to my aid, but I did not,
All of this is on the docket.
it is, but not highlighted.
Oh.
And so I'll just refer to the pages. I apologize. But you can also refer to all of the pages that I'm gonna talk about on this little post-it note. So on page 5, which is 88 of the docket, you'll see that there, the number 1,050,816 is the new number. The previous number in there was 808,538. And this was just because the LCFF calculation that was included was incorrect. So when you put the numbers into the LCFF calculator, it spit out a different number. And so the county said, well, you know, when we put in the numbers, this is what we have. So actually, that's a good thing. We had more money than less. So that was a really great addition and update to our plan. The next page is on page 10 of the plan. And it's also page 93 of the docket. And there's a section that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs down, and it's highlighted, and it begins with the dashboard also includes. And the County Office of Education has said that the state has now required, even though we share the dashboard data in a separate report, to include some broad information about the dashboard results in this section. So they just asked that each of the districts in the county, right, put it in a small paragraph of some of the observances under the dashboard. Are you with me? So that's a new paragraph. Is That's that a what you're new saying? paragraph. Okay, that starts with the
Just, it's
dashboard.
an addition.
Got it. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Then on page 102 of the docket and page 19 of the plan.
I'm sorry, what page on the docket? 102.
102. Again, it's the third paragraph down, beginning with the student group report on the dashboard shows. And that's where we have also captured a little bit of the dashboard data, not anything that this board hasn't seen. You guys have already, you saw our dashboard data last year. We did a presentation last year. All of the information is the same. There's some of the information in the metrics portion of the LCAP already. They've just asked that we include it in this section. So it's not anything new. It's just a technicality mostly. Then on page 74 of the plan, page 157 of the docket. There is a word that needs, 2 words that need to come out. They're under gold 2, and it says desired outcomes. That needs to be eliminated. The reason is because you cannot ever change your intended outcomes in a plan. It makes it look like you're maneuvering your end goal. So we just had to take out those words. Not a huge difference.
I don't see that change in the
Yeah.
version on the docket.
You'll see it.
It's gonna come.
Yeah.
out.
Yes.
Okay.
And then on page 88 of the plan and 171 of the docket. This is where you're going to see a couple of changes noted earlier. So at the top, you'll see these 2 highlighted numbers, and those are the 1,050,000 that we talked about on the front page. So with those corrections, you'll see those 2 in these areas. And then what you'll also see is this column right here and this column right here were blank on the previous plan. And they're not blank. So what it looked like was that we had these planned actions, and we had associated funds and resources set aside for them, and that we didn't spend them.
And we didn't notice that those numbers were not included. So that's the biggest change. So you can take note of that. And what's good about this is that we actually had to overspend our estimated actuals to support the increase in service for marginalized students. And we did overspend, which was great, because in the plan for 23-24, we were going to actually have to improve those services. So that's something that was just a clear omission. That column was left out. That is basically the county's suggested updates. Really what caught their attention was those last pages. Because the numbers weren't adding up. They were saying, well, wait, we know you spent money and we know you did all of these things. And then we just went back. And fortunately, the county is so attentive to us and they're such great partners with us. We went through the whole plan together and just, as long as we're changing it, let's make everything. Let's just finish everything. And they know that our board pays really close attention to that. And so what we have to do is I have to ask the board for approval with their suggested updates so that they can take it to their county board.
No.
Yes.
This sounds like the easiest decision we've made all night, right?
Yes.
Am I missing something?
Bill has a question.
Yes.
So is this part of the audit?
It's not part of the audit, because what's going to end up happening is that our final version, our final edited version will be the one that will be posted to the county and approved and go to the state. And so the good news about that is we've checked, and this is not my forte, but we've checked on the budget and business side, everything does correlate and it matches. So even if it was audited, we'd be fine.
Okay. And who's taking Michelle's place at this point in time?
We've been more of a combination of Director Laurie Streckmeyer, but also county office fiscal services partners.
Okay, so
I have a really basic question. Sorry. Going back to the very beginning, there was like 808,000 versus
Yeah,
$1,050,000. Can you just put it into like a simpler explanation for me?
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. So what happens is there's an LCFS calculator that all business services, assistant superintendents use, the county uses it. And so if you put in some of the numbers, it has an algorithm. And so the numbers that were put in were not correct. And so what ended up happening was the LCFS calculation was incorrect. It was the wrong percentage. And it always takes, if you look at that pie, it takes a percentage of that pie, and it did a mismatch. And so they were saying that doesn't match the number that we see coming out of the LCFS calculator. This is the number we see. Can you replace it? So I'm not sure at what point, like what number was put in to get the wrong number out. The good news is when we look at our budget, this is the right amount, and the more money is a better number.
So you didn't have to like adjust the line item expenditures that were in the LCAP to match.
No, but what we did have to do, and this is a really great point where I learned a lot more about budgets than I ever hoped to. But it was really great for us to be able to do reallocations. Because what we realized is we were spending a lot of money that was not LCFS money. Right. That we can't carry over the LCFF money the way that we can some of our other categoricals. And so what we were able to do is say, well, this isn't making sense. Let's make this adjustment. And so while we know what we spent last year and that never changed, that, how we are reserving funds for this year did change. And so that's why the extra money kind of came into things.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great news.
Yeah.
And I like this addition about the dashboard. I think that's great to just put a focus on that.
Yeah.
Because we're working with, improving that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that that's in the LCAP.
Yeah, and it's, the state of California believes in it so much as an accountability measure. To put it in here and remind people how important it is just makes sense.
Any other questions? No? Thank you so much for taking the time to highlight and make the post-it note and, yeah, and us being able to understand that you can't just simply bold and italicize it like you can in board policy, but this was really helpful to me, so thank you. No one's in the audience, no email questions on this one, I take it. Okay, thank you.
No, nothing.
All right, do you have a motion to approve the update to our LCAP? Thank you. Do I have a second? I'll second. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. Thank you, COE. All right, next up is correspondence. Does anyone have any correspondence items to report? Okay, future agenda items. We have a couple that we're keeping on our list. Anyone have anything they want to bring up right now? If not, you know where to find us. Okay. The final item, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second? I'll second. Okay. I haven't seconded anything all night. Snooze, you lose. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, 9:26, we are adjourned.